Hello, hello, everyone. Well, happy Monday. If I look like I'm looking around, it's because I'm trying to find the correct screen that has the correct button so I can go live on Rockfin. Hang on, give me 1 second. I have way too many windows open and I was not as prepared as I wanted to be because I had to make a PowerPoint presentation before I started today's stream. There we go. Now we're live on all of the platforms. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Odyssey. We are live on Rockfin. We are live on Rumble. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Getter. I don't know, maybe some other ones thrown in there as well. Guys, I hope you're having a good day. Now, today is going to be a little bit of an experiment for me. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not altogether happy about this particular experiment. In fact, for about 2 hours today, I was almost crying when I was talking to Joshua about this particular experiment. And the reason that I'm really not that happy about this is because I kind of feel I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this type of content moving forward. I feel as though I am being backed into a corner where I feel like I do a lot of really amazing content. Not to pat myself on the back, but I do. I feel like my school's exposed content is very, very, very good. I feel like my happy hour content is very, very, very good. I feel like I get on interesting guests and have good discussions. I feel like I do a wide range variety that there will be something that will appeal to everyone. Now, the problem is that the only content that you guys really seem to respond to is this content with Tim Pool's name in it. And so I have had to have a little bit of a come to Jesus with myself because listen, I'm in a very advantageous position. I really enjoy what I do, but the fact of the matter is I do not get enough from YouTube to compensate me for the amount of time that I put into the other types of content. The only content that seems to work on my channel right now is content with Tim Pool's name in it. So I want to talk a little bit about this and then I want to watch this video, but I really do want to just lay out my perspective on this and maybe get some feedback from you guys because I truly guys, I'm at a loss. I don't know what else to do because the thing of it is I don't want to do videos about Tim Pool. I really, 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 really do not want to do videos about Tim Pool. I don't like Tim Pool. I don't like watching Tim Pool. Now, a lot of you guys sent me the video today with Milo being on Tim's show, and you say, Carlin, you need to see the way that Milo slapped Tim down. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of living for that. I could watch that. But as a general rule, I don't like doing content about him specifically. However, for the wide range of content that I do, what has become clear to me over the past couple of weeks is this is the only content that you guys want to watch. Truly. Listen, I have done 3 videos with Tim Pool's name in it in the past couple of weeks, and those are far and away the best performing videos on YouTube. Now I compare them and I know exactly what's going to happen with this stream. Is I'm going to get people coming in saying, "You're just a grifter, grifter, grifter. Why do you always do drama content? Why do you always do drama content? Why you only do drama content?" No, I don't. I do so much other content. The problem is that you guys aren't watching it. The problem is that when people like Tired Woman comes in and says, please no more Tim Pool. Well, Tired Woman, I would love nothing more in this universe than to stop doing content about Tim Pool. The problem is that you don't watch any other of my content. This is the problem. And I love doing my other content. I love the school's exposed investigation streams. Those are probably my favorite. The problem is that only a couple hundred people watch them. I love doing Socialism Saturday, and Socialism Saturday is actually starting to do really well, but still, we're talking about 1/10 of the audience that I have when I do something about Tim Pool. Leonard says he likes Socialism Saturday. He also says he likes Happy Hour. I love doing Happy Hour. I do Happy Hour on my second channel every single week. I have for the past 2.5 years. I get maximum 300 views off of it. Now, I don't have as many subscribers on that channel as I have on this one, but still, I love that content. People don't watch it. Nothing remotely controversial. I do every single week. And, it doesn't do bad. It is actually, in terms of monetization, one of the best monetized things that I do on this channel. But still, it is nowhere close to anything that I do about Tim Pool. I have the Disenraged series. I did a great stream last week with Andrew and Aaron where we were talking about attributes of an effective cult. It was really interesting. Guess what? No one watched it. I do clip videos all the time that how Democrats use abortion to win the midterms. I explained exactly and specifically how Republicans lost and what they need to change so they don't lose again in 2024. I explained it in a way that none of your other influencers are like explaining it. That video has gotten 200 views since I put the clip up today. So I'm truly at a loss, guys. I'm truly, 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 truly at a loss because it really seems as though the only content that you guys want to watch has Tim Pool's name in it. And let me give you a really specific example of this. I did multiple videos about the Don Bulldog footage, the Don Bulldog debate story. I did multiple streams, multiple videos, clips where I broke everything down about Don Bulldog and conservative media flat out lying about what happened at the debate. Each of those videos got maybe a couple hundred views. This one, the 3 videos and the smaller thumbnails got maybe a couple hundred views each. People didn't watch them. Do you know what people did watch? The video where I put Tim Pool's face on the thumbnail and then showed exactly the same footage that I showed in the rest of those 3 videos. The footage was exactly the same. There was no difference in terms of the content. The only difference was Tim Pool's name. And 16,000 people watched that compared to a couple hundred for the other ones. And so the position that I'm feeling like I'm being put in is that the only way that I am going to be able to teach the concepts that I can want to teach to people is by doing it using Tim Pool's name. Now, I am not above using Tim Pool's name and reacting to Tim Pool and talking about all the stupid things that I think Tim Pool says and all the ways in which Tim Pool gets critical race theory wrong. I'm not above using him in order to get you guys to watch something so that I can teach you things that are monumentally more important than anything that Tim Pool is teaching you. However, your actions are showing me that this is what you want. That's what I don't have any other way to explain this. Because I know inevitably I will hear from people in the comments, "Why do you only do drama streams, Carlin? Why do you only do drama? You're just a drama whore. You're a hag. You're a bitch. You're a cunt. You only do drama streams." And yes, I say that because that's what's been in my comments for the past several days. And they ignore every other type of content that I do. So this is what your actions are showing me that you want. And I hate this. I hate this because my other content is way better than this. It is way better than this. But you don't seem to want to watch it. Bree says, so I watched the stream and Milo didn't push Tim around that much. They had some disagreements about Trump versus DeSantis, and I think Milo thinks about the 19th Amendment, but I wouldn't call it Tim getting pushed around. Well, Bree, I appreciate the super chat, but that is not what I heard from other people. So we're going to watch it. I'm going to decide for myself. But I genuinely hate that this is the position that I feel like I'm being put into. But if I have to use Tim Pool's name, and I emphasize the word use, in order to get you guys to get on the stream so I can teach you other things, I'm not above doing that. And if you don't like that I'm doing that, then you need to start to avail yourselves of my other content because I post content almost every single day of the week. And the only time I actually hear from people is when I put Tim Pool's name in it. Like, what other explanation could there possibly be? So let me tell you guys, to encourage you to avail yourselves of some of my other type of content, here are some options for you. Socialism Saturday. On Socialism Saturday, we watch real socialists, not AOC, not Bernie Sanders, not CNN. We watch real socialists tell us about what their plans are. We do that weekly, pretty much, on Saturdays at 6 p.m. No, I can't go on his show because I will never be invited on his show. So that is not possible. It's not possible. If you want to come to Socialism Saturdays, we do them on most Saturdays at 6 p.m. and we watch socialism streams. And I actually think this is some of the most valuable content I'm doing right now because there are not a lot of other people that are doing this type of content. If you want content that is a little bit of a lighthearted look at the news, a little bit more fun, a little bit more interactive, then we do Nothing Remotely Controversial on the channel on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. This has been a weekly show that I've been doing for almost 3 years. You are welcome to come and join us live or to watch the replay. If you want to learn more about what the woke left is doing, I have been doing happy hour streams for about 2 years. These are every single week, Fridays at 5 p.m. on my second channel, youtube.com/actively unwoke. This is where we watch woke videos and we talk about it and we analyze and break down exactly what the woke left are teaching in corporate America, in the classroom, in government, because we watch their actual videos and we hear from the horse's mouth. And I firmly believe that people who watch happy hour on a regular basis know more about what the progressive left is doing than anyone else on the planet, to include Tim fucking Pool, by the way. To include Tim Pool. People who watch happy hour know way more about what is going on than Tim Pool does. Connor, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And I think that this is disappointing too. Like I said, I've almost been crying today. I'm so disappointed by this. If you want to know what's going on with the schools or how to use publicly available information to find out what's going on in your school, I have done probably a dozen live school investigation streams. I've investigated the schools in Portland, Oregon, in Seattle, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in Rochester, New York, in San Francisco, in Chicago, in Austin, Texas. There is a playlist of these videos on the homepage of my channel. I love doing investigation streams. The problem is that no one shows up to watch them. I am showing you flat out what the schools are doing based on their information, and I'm doing it all live to show you how to research this stuff. No one shows up for it. I have a series called the Disenraged series where I do a series of more interesting conversations about the human experience. We had a great stream last week with Andrew Gold and Andrew Smith-Levin talking about the attributes of a successful cult. I have had on priests in the Church of Satan. I've had on psychics. I've had on witches. I've had on real life socialists. I've had on people talking about spirituality and pontificating about life. No one fucking watches them. Like, and at some point you have to say, can I really continue to justify doing this? I post clips of me talking about different things throughout the week. These are posted frequently throughout the week on a bunch of topics. You are welcome to avail yourself of those. I'll give you a couple live streams coming up again because I don't want to hear anyone saying, Carlin, you only just do drama. Oh, yeah? Tomorrow at 5 p.m., I'm having author and historian Dave Benner on the channel to talk to us about his new book, which is about Thomas Paine. And we're going to talk about why he is like the ultimate radical. And I'm really looking forward to this. Dave Benner loves Thomas Paine. He's written a great book about him. And I want to have Dave Benner teach me about why he loves Thomas Paine and he thinks everyone should know about him and why he's highly relevant to our experience today. That will be at 5 p.m. tomorrow. I promise you about 300 people will watch this stream. I have more people watching me live right now because Tim Pool's name is in this stream title. then we'll watch that stream. Bree says, does this issue, people not showing up for the content, apply to the West Wing reaction videos? Yes, it does, Bree, because I did start the West Wing series. I recently recorded another episode of it and the sound got all left up, so I have to re-record it again. I'm sorry for that. But people aren't watching the West Wing content either. So there's absolutely no hurry for me to speed up with that content because people don't watch that either. They apparently only watch things with Tim Pool's name in it. On Wednesday on the channel, I'm bringing back a channel favorite, Joseph Ford Cotto, and we are going to talk about why Republicans lost. He is a Republican strategist. He is one of the smartest people on the internet talking about this stuff, one of the most nuanced people on the internet talking about this stuff. That is Wednesday at 5 p.m. I bet you this video is going to get less than 1,000 views because people aren't watching it. So, guys, I really am at a loss for what to do, because it really does seem like the only way that I can teach you guys the concepts that I want to teach people is if I use Tim Pool's name to get you to start clicking on the videos. Now, I'm more than happy to do that, but if you don't want me to do that, then you've got to start engaging with the other content. And if you're not willing to engage with the other content, then I don't want to hear any complaining. Based on all of the statistics that I have in front of me right now, this is what you guys want. You want me talking about Tim Pool? You want me commenting on Tim Pool? You want me talking about why I think Tim Pool is a retard? You want me ripping into Tim Pool so you can make clips of it? Again, I'm not above doing this stuff if it means that I get to teach you the concepts that I want to teach you. But I would really prefer not to. I would really, 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 really strongly prefer not to. The fact is, though, that I have to find a way to justify continuing to spend this many hours on YouTube because I make far more money spending less time doing other things. And that is just reality. And so if I don't have the views on YouTube specifically, because fun fact, there are often times that I will get more views on other platforms for the same video on YouTube. So if I have to do this type of thing, well, Keith, I'm going to tell you right now, when I got involved with all this, Joshua is one of the staples of this channel. He's been on the channel since the beginning. Joshua is not changing anytime soon. And so if you guys got your feels hurt because I have a psychic on the channel once a week and you can't act like a grown adult and don't watch content that you don't want to watch, you're going to the psychic thing is not changing. If anyone has any other ideas on how to fix this problem, then I would love to hear them. But until that happens, you're going to be seeing a lot more videos of me doing drama streams and reacting to other content creators because you are telling me that that's what you want. I wish I could change it, but this really seems to be the only way I can get your attention. And so if this is what's required, I'm willing to do it. But I would far prefer for you to watch my other content because it's way, way, way better than what we're going to do today. It is way better than what we're going to do today. And conservatives complaining that I have a psychic on my channel once a week because you're apparently afraid of pieces of paper. I'm not going to stop having a psychic on my channel just because you guys are fragile. That's not going to happen. Let's be very clear. So what we're going to do today is we're going to watch the episode where Tim Pool had Milo on his show, and we're going to talk about it. And I want to really focus in on the difference in personality and work style between the two. Now, just to warn you, we probably will not get through the full episode today because I do have a Zoom call with my supporter community at 7 p.m. So I'm thinking we're probably going to get through about the first hour of it, which I think is usually enough to make the point. Now, if you would like to join us for the Zoom call that we have at 7 p.m. Eastern time, these are private, these are non-recorded. You can join and talk about whatever you want or just hang out with the community. That's totally fine. Head over to activelyunwoke.com/support. There's a link pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube. There is also a link in the description below. You can sign up on Patreon or you can sign up on Locals and you'll be sent a Zoom link at 7 p.m. for to join us as part of our supporter community. And these calls go on all night. This call will probably go on to midnight tonight. These calls usually last about 4 or 5 hours. And so we'll be going for a while. You are welcome to join us at any time. You are welcome to stick around at any time. And you'll get a bunch of other perks too when you become a supporter in my community, which I really, really appreciate it. Well, I actually just, and this is the thing. It's like, okay, before we talk about this, let's talk about our rules of the chat, shall we? Let's talk about the rules of the chat. Do I have my chat rules up? I thought I did. Because I already know, because I put Tim Pool's name in the title, this is going to attract a lot of people that I don't normally have on this channel, because you guys will only watch things with Tim Pool's name in it and you don't watch anything else because you are obsessed with Tim Pool for reasons beyond my understanding. So, here are the rules in my chat. I do not have a non-curated chat. If you're going to be in my chat, you're going to play by my rules. If you do not play by my rules, then you will be banned in my chat. Number 1 rule, don't be a dick. This is pretty easy. You will not insult me. You will not insult other people in the chat. If you insult me or you insult other people in the chat, then you will get a warning. And if you do it again, you will be permanently banned. No whining is rule number 2. If I tell you to stop doing something, you will not argue with me. You will not say, I'm not doing the thing you told me not to do, because you always are. I do not put up with whining. I don't like it. You are not children. So if you are whining in my chat, you will find yourself blocked pretty quickly. And I'll say this. If you complain about me having a psychic on my channel, that's something that's going to get you blocked off of my channel pretty quickly. Because I just don't give a fuck, guys. If you are so fragile that you can't stand that I do a show with a psychic once a week, that you can make the choice not to watch, then come on, dude. There's a certain level of maturity that I require to interact with me in my chat, and that's not going to cut it. So those are our rules. Don't be a dick and no whining. If you follow those rules, we'll get along just fine. So what I want to talk about before we get started, this is a disc profile. I'm a disc expert. Disc is a psychological model that has been around for about 100 years. It basically helps people understand different communication styles and how people show up in the world. There are 4 primary disc styles: dominance, influence, steadiness, conscientiousness. Disc profiles are used a lot in workplaces in order to help people have better interpersonal relationships, help people with team communication. The reason that I bring this up is that Tim, I because I've done thousands of these disc profiles, and I know, like, I can people read, so I can watch someone for a very short period of time or have a very short conversation with someone, and I'm going to be able to assess their disc style very, very, very quickly, because I've done so much of this stuff that it's like second nature to me at this point. Tim Pool on the disc profile is going to be about right here. He's going to be a high dominant style, high conscientiousness style. This is the control freak style. This is, hang on. Meta step. Milo didn't really dig at Tim until the end of the show. He told Ian that he wasn't as smart as he thought he was in the middle somewhere. Well, I'm going to have to find that out for myself, Meta step. Thank you for the money. Mr. Motion, my YouTube algo seems crammed with Tim Pool drama videos. Def the algo, not just you. It really makes me upset that this is the tactic that I have to take to get people to sit their asses down and watch, but you got to do what you got to do. So Tim Pool is going to be a combination of the dominance and the conscientious style. This is one of the most pain in the ass styles that exists in the disc profile. Because they want to be in charge. They want to dominate the conversation. They don't want anyone to take them out of control. They want everyone answering to them. They want to be the boss. They want to be the CEO. They don't want anyone over them. They don't want to report to a single other person. The conscientiousness style is also about black and white thinking. So it's either his way or the highway. There's no nuance. There's no discussion. There is his opinion and there is the wrong opinion, and that is it. I'm going to bet that Tim Pool, when he was in school, was the type of kid that would only raise his hand when he absolutely knew that he had the right answer. All right, guys, this type of comment is going to get you blocked in my chat. I have just laid out to you exactly and specifically why we are doing this stream today. And I will be getting a lot of comments like this saying, I have been your fan forever. But something has happened to you and you have changed so much. And I just can't do it anymore. These people have never watched my channel before. I have no idea who that person is. And now they're blocked. Goodbye. You can go somewhere else. So Tim Pool is one of those people that needs to be right and he needs to keep other people in control, and he usually takes a very aggressive tactic in order to do that, and I think that that does come across on the show many times. It doesn't matter that Tim Pool is a high school dropout. That makes absolutely no difference to what I'm saying. Makes absolutely no difference at all. At one point, Tim Pool was in school. At one point, Tim Pool sat in a classroom and had to answer questions. At one point, he was called on by the teacher. The point that I am making is that he is one of those people that will not raise his hand unless he knows he has the right answer. Now, that's not, none of this is good or bad. The things that I just described that Tim Pool does that kind of probably make him a pain in the ass are probably also the things that have led to him being really successful. So don't think I'm making a value judgment about this. I'm not making a value judgment about this. There is no better or worse. There's no right or wrong. There's no good and bad. It's just about how we apply these techniques in any given circumstance. And this is, generally speaking, one of the more difficult disc styles to have. Milo's going to be a little bit different. Milo is going to be about here. Milo, like Tim, is going to have the dominant style. He absolutely will have the dominant style. But Milo also knows how to turn on the charm when he needs to. Milo has more of the influencer style than Tim does. And so, what is going to happen in this is that Tim and Milo, because they both have this strong, dominant style in their personality and in their communication style, they're going to go like this. Because the problem that is going to come up in this stream is that both of them are going to want to be in charge. The people with a strong D style, and again, both Milo and Tim have that. They both want to be in charge. And so they're going to be jockeying for position. And they're going to go like this. I'm going to be blocking a bunch of people today. It's going to be a fun blocking day for me. I can already see that. Emphasize says, where would you say I fall on this chart? I can't really say emphasize because I haven't had a conversation with you where you haven't been putting on an act of some sort. So there is no possible way for me to evaluate this because you have not shown up as who you are. You're putting on an act. You're doing a character. And so it is not possible for me to say where you would be on this chart. But if you want to pay me money, I can run this evaluation for you. If you want to know where you level out, I run these charts for a living. This is how I actually make a lot of money, is by running profiles and assessments for people. So if you want to find out, you can pay me and I will give you the answer. NSX, don't know you, but I know DISC, and what I'm hearing so far, you're explaining it very well. Kudos, thank you. I've spent a lot of time explaining DISC, and actually I'm going to be launching DISC workshops, so you might have the chance to come and learn from me even more because I'm pretty damn good at it, if I do say so myself. So anyway, guys, what I'm going to be looking for on this stream today is I'm going to be looking for Tim's conscientiousness style to come out. I'm going to be looking for him to dig in his heels when Milo says something that maybe contradicts something that Tim has said, or Milo challenges Tim in some way. We're going to see Tim really come out and try to outdo. This is going to be my guess, and I have not watched 1 second of this. But let's see if I end up being right. My guess is going to be that Tim and Milo are going to get into a pissing contest where Milo's going to say something that contradicts Tim. And then Tim isn't going to like that Milo says something that contradicted him. And he's going to try to contradict him right back. And then Milo is not going to like that Tim did that. And so he's going to contradict him right back. But Milo, because Milo has more of this influencer style than Tim has, I bet you he's going to be a little bit more charming about it at first. But I bet you he'll be an arrogant prick by the end. We might not get to the end. Maybe we should watch it on like 1.5 speed or something like that. So that is what we're going to do today, guys. We are going to watch the stream that Tim Pool did with Milo. And just to remind you guys that this is not exactly how I want to be spending my time, I'm going to put this banner across the bottom of my stream. And if anyone has any comments about, I just don't know why you do so much drama, which I know will come up because they do every single fucking time, I will remind you that this is not the type of content that I want to be doing, and that if you would like me to do other types of content, then I'm more than happy to do it. And I think I've got really great content on this channel that a lot of people have not availed themselves of because it doesn't have Tim Pool's fucking name in it. But if this is what I need you to do to get you guys to sit down and click on a thumbnail and listen, I am more than happy to do it. You're welcome to leave. You already broke rule number 1, so you won't be able to chat in any way. Goodbye. I know that Tim Pool's fans are going to try to test the rules of the chat because you guys are like kids. You try to test boundaries to see what you can get away with. I promise you that it's not going to have the result that you think it's going to have. Because when I say I will block your ass, I actually do mean it. I'm not actually just saying it. All right, guys. NSX says, Milo is good at setting tone, forcing others to mirror him. Oh, what a great observation, NSX. I think you and I are going to be friends today. All right. Let's pop this open. And again, guys, I do watch the chat, obviously, for super chats. But if you say something really smart and insightful that is not a super chat, I'm likely to display it on the screen. Nope, never did. Let's get this party started, guys. I do content almost every single day of the week about things that are way more interesting than this. So if you want to avail yourself of my other content, you can come back really anytime. But please mount that like button for me. We don't smash the like button on this channel. We mount the like button on this channel because we're fully blown adults. And let's get this party started. I might just turn up the speed a little bit, just a little bit, to help us get through more of this because I have to go at 7. Come on. Well, at least I have figured this out, Marius, that this is what you guys want. Again,
yesterday was absolutely crazy. We did like a 5-hour long show. It was a whole lot of fun. And in the end,
okay, I also want to say this before we get started. I'm pretty sure that the reason that Tim Pool brought Milo, like had already pre-booked Milo for this episode, and I can already tell I'm actually going to need to slow down the playback speed, which I'm not happy about because Tim Pool's talking way too fast already. The reason that I think Tim brought Milo on for this episode is he was convinced that it was going to be a red wave. I just want to pat myself on the back. I was one of very few people that called 6 months ago that it was not going to be a red wave in November. I've done several videos about why I didn't think it was going to be a red wave in November. You can avail yourself of those if you want to know. But I never thought it was going to be a red wave in November. Tim Pool did. And so I'm going to take the win on that one. Magpie said, when I did disc at age 17, I was equally D and I. It is potentially different now. Yes, disc will change over your lifetime, but usually not that much unless you go through a midlife crisis.
Republicans did fairly well.
That's better.
If you were tracking the projections a month or two before.
Did Tim just say Republicans did fairly well? No, Republicans did not do fairly well. Republicans haven't even guaranteed themselves winning the House yet. And they lost the Senate. So no, Tim, Republicans did not do fairly well. Republicans lost so big time. It is embarrassing how badly Republicans lost.
This went down, then you're not surprised by the results. If you were tracking the projections only in the week or two before, you probably thought they were going to do way, way, way better. And, you know, look, I'll say everybody wants to yell and scream red wave because they want to boost morale and get everyone to go and vote. But this is why I was saying things like, don't think you're going to win. You need to go out and vote no matter what the polls say. But in the end, it's within the parameters of what even 538 projections were up until like 2 weeks ago when these debates started happening. So right now, I think we're looking at potentially 224 seats for the Republicans in the House. We're looking at potentially 51 seats, maybe with the runoff. We'll see.
Both of those things are wrong. Both of those things are wrong. The maximum number of seats probably that Republicans are going to get is 220 in the House, which is just two that they need to, that is just two over what they need to actually control the House, which is pathetic. Pathetic in a midterm. Pathetic. And Republicans lost the Senate. And Republicans are probably going to lose that runoff in Georgia too, because what a lot of people don't understand about that libertarian that spoiled the Georgia runoff, Chase Oliver, that a lot of Republicans are really angry at Chase Oliver right now. The fact of the matter is that Chase Oliver is a leftist. He is far left. Now, libertarians can be on both the left and the right. Chase Oliver is far left. Chase Oliver didn't pull votes from Republicans. Chase Oliver pulled votes from Democrats. And so going into this runoff, Chase Oliver isn't going to be in it anymore, which means you're going to have more Democrat votes already than you do Republicans. And Herschel Walker was already down. So the Republicans are going to end up losing a Senate seat out of the midterm elections. So don't tell me Republicans had a good night. Anyone that tells you that Republicans had a good night last week is lying to you. Is lying to you. Raymond, I like a lot. Oh, that's not the one I want to put up. This one. Sorry. I like Elijah a lot. I'm more than happy to do an Elijah Schaefer reaction video if you guys point me to which one you want me to react to. Let me know.
Looks like Nevada might flip. There's a few congressional districts we're still looking at potentially that are about to flip. It looks like in Maryland, we may actually see one district flip. And then what do you expect? I mean, Republicans take the House in the midterm. They can launch investigations. They were never going to pass laws. We'll see. But Joe Biden gave a speech. Joe Biden came out and said, I will do nothing. I will change nothing. Everything that's going as bad as it is will continue. Thanks mostly because, well, not a lot could have changed, but because Democratic voters, they wanted it. In places like New York, California, this is the thing that they want. I mean, I can't blame them. They live there. They want it. By all means, you can have it. So we'll talk about that and so much more. We have a lot of election stuff to go through. DeSantis with his double-digit lead, winning in Florida. Now people are suggesting
every conservative that points to Florida as proof that Republicans won the election blatantly ignored what Scott Pressler told you, which is that it was always going to be fine in Florida. It was probably going to be fine in Arizona. I still think Carrie Lake is going to end up winning governor of Arizona. I was not at all surprised to see that Blake Masters lost because reasons. That's another thing I can get into on another day. But this was already told to you guys. But if you really think that Republicans had a winning night because they did good in one single state and then sucked in pretty much every other state. And by the way, I did an interview over the weekend where this guy, and I like him a lot, and so I don't want to shit talk him because I do actually like him and I think he's a good guy. He really tried to set me up in this interview. He said something like, in the state of Florida, they require voter ID. And they count all of the votes on election day instead of waiting it out for a week. And Florida turned out just fine. Isn't that why Florida turned out just fine and every other state turned out for shit? And I said to him, well, guess what? I live in New Hampshire. We require voter ID in New Hampshire. I had to show an ID when I voted. And guess what? In New Hampshire, we counted all the votes on the night of the election. So it was not dissimilar to Florida at all. And in New Hampshire, which people think is a blue state, but is not a blue state at all, Republicans got slaughtered. And the reason they got slaughtered was because of the Democrat youth voter turnout on UNH's campus and others too. But that was one of the reasons that they got their asses handed to them. And it wasn't even just that. It was that Republicans used all of their Roe v. Wade money in order to buy ads about abortion in New Hampshire for 6 months prior to the election. So Republicans got slaughtered in New Hampshire, even though they really shouldn't have by any measurable stretch. So to say that Florida is the reason that Republicans had a good night it is intellectually dishonest at best.
That he's the front runner for 2024 and for the whole presidency, in fact. And this story that I just love, Democrats voted in a dead guy because they went in and they voted Democrat and the guy was dead. And I feel bad, my condolences to his family or anything, but They voted for a dead guy. So we'll talk about that. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com. Become a member to support our work. We're going to have a members only show.
Blah, 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 blah. I don't care about Tim's music. Okay, Milo, thank you.
No, really. I've been interviewed by very aggressive, intelligent, and hostile people. And you're, of course, a sweetheart. But I was just introduced. I have a greater understanding of the restrictions under which you operate now. And I was sort of mentally checking off as we talked about the things that I probably shouldn't say. I was just sort of mentally checking off, like, oh, okay, that's yeah. So I don't really have any ways to communicate that don't aggressively violate the rules of YouTube and whatever. But I've got I've got post-its. I've made post-its of the most egregious offenses, and with every good intention in the world, I'm going to do the best I can to be socially acceptable for you.
But I want everybody hearing to realize that we're going to do the members only uncensored show. And then, we'll show the post-its and people.
By the time that rolls around, I'm going to be so desperate to swear. It's going to be very undignified.
The reason we don't like swearing is because people watch with their kids are in the room or they're listening in the car and they're driving their kids. If you swear, we just, it is
a ghastly childhood to be subjected to political commentary. Could only happen. It could only happen in a third world country. Civilized people are not so obsessed with politics.
Milo,
just so you guys know, if you guys are under the impression that if you swear in a video, it's going to get demonetized, that is 99% not true. I swear like a sailor. And I'll tell you what, since I became a libertarian a year and a half ago, my propensity to insult people with the most vulgar possible language, to include retard, to include cunt, to include pussy, has gone up exponentially. Sorry if any kids are listening. And I swear like a sailor on these streams, and I rarely get demonetized. So anyone who thinks you get demonetized by dropping the worst possible words, it is just not true.
We have a lot to talk about, like with you and everything that you've done and been going through, and what you're willing to talk about.
Is that a form of child abuse? No, look, I'm going to do the best I can to stay within the lines that are terrifying me. But yeah, I don't think I've done an interview for nearly half a decade.
Wow.
Because I just realized that I didn't trust myself.
Lydia.
To
I was exposed to political
we're mostly
content
going to be
as
talking
well.
about what's going on. So we'll get into it.
I'm very excited about this Fetterman guy. He's my new fascination.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. We'll talk all about it. We also got Luke here, of course.
This should be a very interesting show. I'm looking forward to it. And they voted in a dead guy. And John Fetterman.
Because Democrat voters can relate to him.
Exactly. This is going to be a fun show, but this is why I decided to wear my Normalized Critical Thinking t-shirt, which I think we need more of than ever. If you agree, you could get the t-shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com.
Oh my God.
And because you do, that's why I'm here. Ian, thank you so much for coming. Where's the hat? I gave you a hat yesterday. Where is it?
It's too warm, man. I just wore a sweater. Milo, you nailed one aspect of communication. That is that outfit. It's badass.
Well, I figured
the flip-flops are better.
I like it.
They're fish flops. I will show you.
Oh,
fish flops.
When you have shorts on.
Oh, they're fish.
If you live in Florida for
that's funny.
Period of time, you begin to go native, and you start to wear things like this.
Okay,
somebody got it for me.
I want to put a poll in the chat on YouTube, and this is actually a genuine question. And hang on, let me make sure. Okay, so do we think that Milo was on drugs when he was on this show? And I'm deadly serious about this because he's already striking me as though he might be on something. Do we think that Milo is on drugs? Drugs on this show? Yes, no. Every single time that I have seen Milo at an event in person in the last couple of years, he has absolutely been on something. I'm not judging, man. I don't really care what people do. It's none of my business. I'm just saying that every single time I have seen Milo at an event, he has been on something. And it is not even hard to ascertain that if you have been around people that are on drugs.
A joke, and they're the most comfortable things I've ever had on my feet. So I live exclusively in crushed velvet handmade slippers from German Street in England and fish flops.
Well,
You know
all right.
what? I have $2,000 like Versace brocade,
He does,
slides
and
all this stuff.
they're beautiful.
get
I've seen them. They're beautiful.
No compliments
those
remotely
shoes
close
are beautiful.
to how much people love these shoes.
The Versace
I get
ones.
asked, I think, 10 times a day, where did you get those shoes? So yeah, no, I'm basically living the life of an eccentric retiree, which I'm happy with because I do a lot of work behind the scenes for people now. So I get sort of all of the clout, influence, and income without any of the stress of being in public. It's great.
The wild ride you
Because
went
your
through
life seems terrible.
from
I couldn't do it.
from 2016
I have a
to
better
2018.
understanding now of
Milo is
of the,
absolutely
I have a better
100.
understanding now of the
Milo is absolutely 100% a narcissist. And I'll tell you this. So you guys know how I showed you that disc profile at the top of the show. And I said that both Milo and Tim have high D scores. Both Milo and Tim are very big Ds, if you want to go that way. But the thing of it is that every single narcissist has a high D score. Not everyone who has a high D score is a narcissist, but every single narcissist, real one, like narcissistic personality disorder, every single one of them has high Ds. But that doesn't mean that I don't think Tim is a narcissist. I think Tim is a pain in the ass. I just don't think he's a narcissist. Milo, I think, is a legitimate narcissist. And by the way, for someone saying, why am I dissing Milo? I'm not. I don't think that narcissists are bad people. I think that narcissists, that's just the way they are. Like it's part genetic, it's part upbringing. It's not really their fault at all. I don't believe in good or bad. I also am not saying that Milo's a bad person because he's obviously on drugs, and 51% of you agree with me. I like, you do you, man. I'm just commenting on what I'm seeing.
Well,
limitations within which you have to operate, and I have to say I wouldn't be capable of doing it.
We should we should have that conversation for the Uncensored show and just talk about how the whole system
I should
is
probably
functioning.
just talk then.
Listen now, talk then.
Listen now.
I play that game
Well,
sometimes.
you'll have stuff to say, so we'll get into it. We also got Serge pressing all the buttons.
Hey, what's up, guys?
So
well, all right.
I wasn't trying to give you a hard time. I'll be difficult. I don't really know how to talk to normal people anymore because I've just been a regular human for 5 years. So I don't know how to do the coloring between the lines thing.
Yeah, it's an art form, man. It's a weird time to be alive with.
I'm gonna speed it up just a little bit.
Subjugation.
We're gonna try 1.25.
Yeah, before like
Ian wants to explain how to make chlorine gas or whatever.
Hey, you.
but does it have an extraordinarily depressing effect on you? It must be demoralizing.
It does. Last night, I wanted to say so much.
Emasculating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like part of you has been chopped off.
It's like my soul is muted. It's really disturbing, and I want to change.
Well,
it.
you're a sweetheart, so it's probably not so difficult for you. But those of us who are compelled to break the rules with every breath we take.
Okay.
I think
there used to be a place for us,
California.
Let me ask this, because right now I have 700 people watching this live, which is awesome, and welcome if you're new to my channel. I'm really glad you're here. I want to ask my supporter community, because I know many of you are in the chat right now. Would it piss you off if I pushed the start of our community Zoom back to 8 p.m. so we can actually watch this stream without speeding it up, without doing any of that, because I find them difficult to listen to even at 1.25 speed. So let me know in the chat if my supporter community would mind if I pushed back the start of the Zoom tonight to 8 p.m. Let me know.
I think we can have a much greater conversation on this for the Uncensored show, but I'll just add, I view it like running through a battlefield where, mines have been placed and we're trying to make it to the other side to win this conflict. So
also, when you're trying to change a system structure, it's good to go right next door to the system and behave the way you want that system to become, and then it will bleed over into the new system.
Let's say that. Let's talk.
We'll agree to disagree on strategy.
We'll talk about that for the members on the Uncensored, where we can go really off. But let's jump into this first story.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, last night Republicans won, and then I wake up in the morning and all the conservatives are angry. They're saying
Republicans did not win,
this was
Tim.
an unlosable election and we did so poorly. And I'm seeing all this.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is Tim Pool still trying to sell you guys the line that Republicans won? Because if Tim Pool is honestly and truly trying to sell you guys the line that Republicans won, then everything else Tim Pool says needs to be called into question from here on forward. I am sorry. That is a ridiculously absurd notion. Republicans should have taken the House by at least 20 seats. They're going to be lucky to take it by 2. Republicans should have taken the Senate by at least 2 or 3 seats. And they have lost the Senate. Any notion that Republicans won is absurd and completely unhinged from reality. Completely unhinged. I'm sorry.
These leftist personalities cheering and screaming like, "Oh, no red wave," and I'm just like, I don't understand. The Republicans won. Like,
no,
they
didn't.
won.
No,
they won.
Wrong.
And there's likely more winning coming.
No,
I get it. Republicans wanted a bloodbath, but instead they got a victory. So now this is great. Biden says he won't change anything after a successful night for Dems. Does intend to run in 2024, and it will be fun watching Don v. Ron taunts press. Okay, he's not going to change anything. That's not the message that people wanted to hear. The message that people want to hear is things are going to get better. But things are bad. And for a variety of reasons, people are willing to vote Democrat, and a variety of really weird reasons, like they voted in the dead guy. But
oh, that's really nice, Lydia. Thank you for that.
I think that people used to be engaged in politics because they wanted to get a glimpse of a better world. But that's the washing powder version of politics. I think people are well into bitterness. I think people want to see the bad guys bleed. I think that people want to see the bloodbath that you're talking about comes not from a desire to reimagine the world in a better way, because I think people are losing hope in that. I think people want to see their antagonists suffer.
Yes, I agree with Milo. I agree 100% with Milo.
Republican frustration is that they were expecting a rare moment of catharsis, which is not granted often to people with right of center politics, a moment in which they could reassure themselves that sometimes justice is done, that the universe is capable of delivering true justice where it is warranted, and they were robbed of that. So what was stolen from them was not some kind of
what was stolen?
Washing powder commercial.
What was stolen?
Better future.
Okay.
What was stolen from them was revenge.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna pause here because Milo is trying to indirectly insinuate that the election was somehow stolen from Republicans. Listen, I am not without sympathy for the position that Republicans find themselves in. However, there is zero evidence of fraud. I'm about to tell Republicans and conservatives a hard truth that they don't want to hear. There is zero evidence of fraud. If you have evidence, you need to start talking about that evidence specifically and not crazy theories like Dominion and the Kraken and all this stuff that we heard in 2020. There is zero evidence that there was fraud. And I predicted what happened in the election last week 6 months ago, the day that the draft decision of Roe v. Wade was released. The fact is that Republicans played themselves. They played themselves. Their influencers lied to their audiences, saying abortion is not going to be an issue when abortion was the issue. It was the issue that Democrats raised record amounts of money on. And they used that record-breaking fundraising to push abortion ads into every single swing state for 6 months prior to the election. And I know that because I saw the ads in New Hampshire that they were doing. There was not a day that went by that I didn't see those ads. And that is what led to the record-breaking Democrat turnout. And so that is what Republicans need to hear right now. And by the way, if there was fraud, if there was, and I don't believe there was, if there was, then why didn't the Republicans do anything about it over the last 2 years? Because the Democrats flat out confessed about what they did to win the 2020 election in that Time magazine article where they said they fortified the election. The Democrats told Republicans exactly what they did and how they did it. It isn't even a mystery of what they did. They bragged about it in Time magazine. So if Republicans had that, and they did nothing about it, then it is still Republicans' fault that they lost last week. And that is the hard truth that you guys need to hear, that your influencers, to include Tim Pool, are disinclined to tell you Because when they do tell you that, you turn on them because you don't want to hear it. I am not going to coddle you. You lost because you didn't listen, you weren't hinged into reality, and you played themselves. And that has since been proven to be a typo. That was a typo. That was a typo. There were no other typos. You still lost, even with that typo fixed. You lost exponentially, even with that. NSX says, Milo is talking about rhinos being underhanded. He's not referring to fraud, in my own opinion. Yes, R screw the pooch. Well, you know, even if that's true, I still wanted to make that point that there is no proof at all that there was fraud. If there is proof, you guys need to start showing the actual proof and not just screaming fraud. And there are a lot of reasons why Republicans lost last week that are perfectly grounded in reality and were completely predictable.
Yeah.
Because these people don't feel like they've been out of power, and that's a shame. They feel like there are. I mean, they articulate their feelings now in very religious terms, and they talk about their enemies in terms of demons, devils, and Satan, and the way in which they express themselves,
which is also unhinged.
You know, and the I think the sunk emotional cost that they had attached to the midterms as a moment when they could reassure themselves that maybe there was, maybe there was still some glimmer of.
But they won.
No,
well, not really.
Tim,
But
they
they
didn't.
won what they needed. The House.
No,
Milo is correct and Tim is wrong.
It was a bog standard
what
or
could they-
slightly unimpressive.
Tim, what could they have done better? Are you fucking shitting me? Tim, what could they have done better? They could have listened to everyone who told them 6 months ago that they were going to lose based on abortion. And they could have done something about it to create some sort of platform for their candidates to run on that was not, we're not Democrats. Did anyone, and this is an honest question for the chat, did anyone hear any Republican candidate running on any platform that was not vote for me because I'm not a Democrat? Again, Don Bolduc, the Senate candidate in New Hampshire, I went to one of his events. And Don Bolduc's entire stump speech was, Democrats are awful. I'm not a Democrat. Vote for me. That was his entire pitch for why we should vote for him. It was not even about him or his policies or what he would do or what he would fight for. It was, I'm not a Democrat. Vote for me. Was there any Republican that was running on anything other than I'm not a Democrat? That was the fucking problem. That is what needed to be fixed. This isn't even that hard. Why isn't Tim Pool screaming this? Because he's a grifter and wants to play to conservative audiences. Oh, I said it. Sorry, not sorry.
Midterm in which the usual swing occurred. That is not what
even
Republicans
Milo's
were
telling
expecting.
Right.
Wrong.
They
That's
wanted
not what they were hoping
victory.
for. That's not a victory. When something happens that always happens, that happens whether you campaign or not, that happens whether you do anything or not, that's not a victory. That's
Yes,
that's
Milo is
people
100%
perceive that
correct.
as a
I'm
kind of,
currently on Team Milo.
as a sort of almost like a weather event, you know, it's just part of the natural cycle of things.
Yeah.
There was no victory because there was nothing above and beyond what the ordinary course of a midterm election.
I understand.
Hang on. Amanda is saying in the chat, and for those of you who are new to me, I do actually talk and interact with my chat, and I do know people in my chat and who are regulars on my channel. So if you'd like to join me today, you can subscribe. I do streams 5 days a week, sometimes more. But Amanda said something, not a senator candidate, but the candidate for governor in Arizona. Yes, Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake is the only Republican candidate that I can think of that ran on a platform that was not, I'm not a Democrat. And to be really blunt, Carrie Lake should be training every single Republican candidate moving forward. Carrie Lake is like a fucking goddess. She is like a jewel. She is like a treasure that the Republican Party has. If the Republican Party does not put Carrie Lake in charge of training every single Republican candidate on how to be an effective candidate going forward, they are dropping the ball entirely. Carrie Lake is a phenomenal candidate.
Understand what you're saying. That they needed something that proved something symbolic and something of meaning.
They just wanted the people who they feel are tearing the fabric of their civilization apart. doing all kinds of things that we'll
To be
talk
rebuked.
about in the to suffer. They
Yeah.
wanted to see the I forget what the Conan quote is. I haven't seen it for 25 years, but they wanted that. Whatever the first bit is, the lamentations of their women. They wanted shrieking. They wanted the 2016 energy.
Right.
They
But
wanted to see liberals panic.
But that's nebulous in the sense that by taking
it's
by,
atavistic.
It's not nebulous at all, Tim.
But listen,
Fundamental. It's
by winning the House, there can now
didn't
be
win the
inquiries,
House.
investigations.
Nobody cares
subpoenas.
about winning the House.
Right. So listen.
Nobody cares about winning the House. The entire
what they
Republican
get
base is now
for
at peace
them
with the
to
fact
get
that elections are
the
theater.
retribution.
You know what? I did not believe that Milo was straight before this. You can even go back and watch back episodes and Nothing Remotely Controversial, where I was like, there is no way in this universe that Milo Yiannopoulos would ever sleep with a woman ever. Like, Milo is obviously gay. I'm sorry. However, Milo is giving such big dick energy right now that even though Milo is not my type at all, I'm a little turned on. I'm not going to lie. Like, I love the way he's not taking Tim's shit. He is telling Tim he's wrong, and Milo is absolutely right in everything that he's saying. And like, Tim is like not liking it at all, and I am living for this. Don't give in to him, Milo. Yes, he's absolutely still gay. He's 100% still gay. Milo Yiannopoulos has never slept with a woman. I'm not taking it back.
For them to feel the satisfaction is simply their choice. They got what they could get. Now, I suppose they wanted to see a tremendous landslide victory.
They didn't get what they could
which
get.
wouldn't have changed anything procedurally.
Tim, you are wrong.
No.
Well, I would just
they
add
didn't get what they could get. They rightly intuit that they were robbed of this victory by people who should have had their backs.
But what's the victory? What is victory?
We're already seeing the pissing contest. I told you guys it was going to happen.
Enemies humiliated.
Right.
And they didn't.
And the only reason they're not being humiliated is because Republicans are acting like they lost.
They did lose.
What happened in this election was not only were the leaders in the Republican Party removing spending from some of the most inspirational and popular candidates, which itself is a form of demoralization, and sabotaging some of the candidates that had the most promise for upsets, those little things that give you a burst of joy, and a burst of joy in an otherwise, don't
I know it? And it really pisses me off.
It would have been nice if he'd won, but
I'm playing with the cards I've been dealt.
What they correctly intuited is that this was another example of the powers that be in the Republican Party leaving money on the table, actively sabotaging the candidates that the base likes most because they hate them, and they are right about that. That's what happened. The powers that be in the Republican Party.
I don't put as much credence on that. Listen, I'm not saying that the Republican Party didn't sabotage their own candidates, because the Republican Party absolutely 100% did sabotage their own candidates. They did. So I'm not questioning that it happened. I'm questioning how big of an impact it had. Because if I look at someone like a Blake Masters had access to Peter Thiel's checkbook. So the Republican Party didn't invest a couple more $1 million in Blake Masters' race. Blake Masters had access to the Peter Thiel checkbook. He didn't need it. So I think that, again, I don't see enough responsibility being taken for how bad the Roe decision was for Republicans. The Roe decision turned off every single woman that the Republicans flipped in 2020 to get them from Democrat to Republican. It turned off every single woman that did that, almost every single one. I shouldn't say everyone, but a significant majority. The Roe decision also, it also allowed the Democrats to raise record amounts of money for 6 months leading up to the election. The Roe decision allowed the Democrats to activate their entire base, particularly on college campuses. Did you guys see how long the lines were to vote on some college campuses? That was because of the Roe decision. And they had this whole machine built around that. And I really think that Republicans are not actively grappling with the fact of how much that decision hurt them. Johnny Bravo, Republicans lose because of imposing their morality. Yes, Johnny, I 100% agree with you. If Republicans don't immediately stop with the moral majority Christian conservative bullshit, then they're going to lose in 2024. They're going to. I'm sorry. And the thing of it is I don't care if people are Christians. You're allowed to worship in whatever way you want. But when you try to force your religion onto other people consistently as your primary platform, you're going to piss a lot of people off, and they're going to say, Joe Biden has dementia, but you're trying to make me practice a religion that I don't believe in. So I don't think you're any better. One of the problems that the Republicans have right now is that there is a big majority of the population who does not view them any differently than the Democrats. They may not like the Democrats. Fine, they may not like the Democrats, but that doesn't mean they like the Republicans, and it certainly doesn't mean they dislike the Democrats enough to vote for you. That's the problem. Bill M., I rolled my eyes when Milo played the tiresome conservative card. Anything I dislike is Satanism. Well, I think what he was, and of course, Bill is a priest in the Church of Satan, so I can understand why you might take umbrage with that, Bill. But the thing of it is he's not wrong that that's how Republicans perceive it, is he? I think I get what he was saying. But we are seeing the pissing contest already develop between Tim and Milo. And I'm telling you, that's both because they both have that high D communication style where both of them need to be in charge. Let's keep watching, guys. Please mount that like button for me.
Party sabotaged some of the candidates that were the most popular with the base and changed the result of some of those elections through removing millions of dollars in spending. So the Republicans are acting out not because they're babies who are choosing to be losers. They're acting out because they were wronged and they know it.
Sure. But I don't think
that
explains Ben Shapiro, for instance.
Nothing explains Ben Shapiro.
Well, look, you look at the Daily Wire guys, and they're
were all
upset
wrong
about the results.
The Daily Wire guys were all wrong.
They've never had a moment of contentment in their lives.
So perhaps that's it. They weren't going to be satisfied no matter what happened.
Well, they won't. All sorts of things.
Well, just really quickly, I really wanted to butt in and make a point here.
The Daily Wire guys are such fucking shills. Such shills. I like some of them. I like Andrew Klavan. He's all right. Michael Knowles has moments where he's all right. The rest of them are just shills that are just trying to maintain their status, and that's all it really is. Self says, Republicans need to run with a clear policy of government reform, and Mitch needs to go or stop sabotaging. Anyhow, Milo is more tolerable than Beanie Man. I agree with you on every single point you've made there. Republicans need to learn to run liberty candidates. If Republicans want libertarian votes, and they do, they're going to need to learn to run libertarian candidates, or at least much more liberty-minded candidates like your Thomas Massey's or Rand Paul's, things like that. And by the way, I do not include Blake Masters in that category at all. And so Republicans need to run better candidates if they want to win.
They won't be happy until a quite different flag is flying over the White House.
Yeah, but the midterm elections are usually a referendum on the president's term. I think there's a reason why Biden is coming out right now and saying, I'm going to keep doing what I usually do. But they historically politically are. And if we look at previous midterms, like in 2010 and 2014, the Republicans overwhelmingly won by huge numbers. They didn't do that this time. The Senate, again, is still undecided.
And these results don't.
That's because Glenn Beck is one of the only good commentators. Glenn Beck is awesome.
Now, there are candidates that are weird special cases, like Fetterman, who has inspired
so out of
sympathy.
Touch. I absolutely agree, Justin.
He's just, I can't help but sort of like the guy. It just brings out, kind of a warm feeling. I just kind of want to see him succeed because I see him struggling.
I see a Fetterman.
Fetterman is going to be such a shit show to watch for the next 6 years. And don't tell me you guys aren't looking forward to the shit show that is going to be John Fetterman. That's going to be the gift that keeps on giving right there. I was of two minds. Like, part of me was sad that he won, and part of me was like really excited that he won because I knew he was going to win. I was expecting him to win because Oz sucked as a candidate. And again, Oz is another case of where the Republican Party sabotaged their own. Does anyone remember the 3-day Twitter bender that Rick Grinnell went on against Kathy Barnett? If the Republicans had nominated Kathy Barnett in Pennsylvania, she would have won. Oz was possibly one of the worst possible candidates that the Republicans ever could have had ever. So I think Fetterman's going to be, from a cringe perspective, it's going to be amazing. Come on. We should enjoy every single second of it. Self says, on the plus side, the pain over Roe may be tempered by 2024. They were digits for trying to roll. Oh, idiots. I think that they were idiots for trying to roll it back at the state level. Never give your enemy a sword. Yeah, I absolutely I ranted so much about the Roe decision. My God. And I was told I was wrong, and I'm taking my vindication victory lap.
And Biden ticket.
Normal response to seeing somebody struggling is to want to help them. You know, like I watched that debate and I wanted to vote for the guy. That what people are seeing is results that are out of step with how they know people feel about this presidency. And the reason those results are out of step is the Republican leadership.
Do you think
who didn't just sit by and say, let's just let what happens happen. They actively sabotaged the chances of some of the most popular, populist, nationalist, Trump-adjacent characters. It is, and you know, voters are a little bit better informed and a little bit more intelligent, I think, than the Washington people give them credit for. They have correctly intuited betrayal. They are not upset because the results were, you know, they didn't get enough seats. They are justly incensed and indignant because they know that they have been betrayed by the people they pay to have their backs.
Do you think that the Republican Party should split in half or split apart?
I think the country should split in half. I'm very much in favor of a national divorce. The Republican Party is
secession for the win, man. New Hampshire's going to be the first state to secede. Change my mind.
Survives despite failing to understand how to talk like human beings, how to talk to human beings, and how to reflect the concerns of the voters who, out of the indefatigability of the human spirit, keep hoping for the best and voting for them anyway. The party is not fit for purpose, and if it doesn't reinvent itself in Trump's image, it doesn't deserve to live.
Oh, in Trump's image?
DeSantis, that's going to be the big debate here.
Well, let's get to that in a second. But man, the Republican Party needs to reinvent itself, but it's not going to work in the image of Trump. And listen, I want Trump to run more than like anyone. I think not that I'm going to vote for him, because for those of you who don't know, I'm a libertarian. I will never vote for Republicans again. But I love Trump for the entertainment value. I think that it would be just like hilarious to watch him run. I want to see Trump versus DeSantis and all the other clown car candidates that are going to come out, but I just don't think it's a good idea. It would be a really bad idea for the Republican Party to nominate Trump in 2024. You're just like asking for trouble. You guys got to nominate DeSantis if you want to win, man. It's going to be your only shot. Mama says Tim has successfully exposed himself as an out-of-touch micro-elite whose ego has run away with himself. So refreshing to see Milo not yield to the intellectual bully pulpit Tim has carefully crafted. I agree with that. I think that Tim surrounds himself with people who are not as smart as him, so he can, by comparison, look smarter than them. Because like we said at the top, Tim has a personality style where he has to be right. If it is his opinion or you are wrong. And so I think that he is very careful about the people that he surrounds himself with, because he looks very smart by comparison. And Milo and him are in a pissing contest, and I don't think Tim looks good at it. I really don't.
Here as well.
I don't think anybody is seriously in favor of DeSantis unless they're paid to be.
I strongly disagree with you on that, but that's going to be a topic we're going to be discussing here.
If you're on Meghan McCain's side, you're on the wrong side.
Ha! I agree with that.
I don't think I'm on Meghan McCain's side at all. But more importantly here, there is something to say about this performance in the face of economic inflation, lockdowns, crime waves, which seems like it wasn't really affecting the election results. There's also the fact that a lot of Trump-endorsed candidates didn't win. Trump's attacking some of them right now, and the ones that he did,
Trumpian candidates,
and then the ones he attacked.
Trump makes stupid decisions all the time.
The problem here, I felt a bit icky seeing Trump whine about the consultants. It didn't seem like a kind of alpha dog daddy thing that we're used to from Trump. Seemed a little bit pathetic. And my hope is that he will announce soon and get his mojo back. Hang on.
Amanda, we need to have a talk, Amanda. No one is joining Massachusetts in a secession movement. That is not going to happen. New Hampshire is the only state to have a vote on secession since the Civil War. We did it over the summer, I think. We did it a couple months ago. Not even a couple months, but like I think it was it before PorcFest? I'm not sure. We did it earlier this year. Yes, it was in the last legislative session. So New Hampshire is the only vote to have had an only state to have a vote on secession since the Civil War. If a state secedes, it is not going to be Massachusetts. It is going to be New Hampshire. New Hampshire is the libertarian homeland. People don't understand this. They think New Hampshire's a blue state. New Hampshire's not a blue state. Politically, at the state level in New Hampshire, the libertarians have a lot of power. The Democrats in New Hampshire are actually more afraid of the libertarians than they are of the Republicans. Massachusetts is not a state that's going to lead the secession movement. It's going to be New Hampshire.
As he's taking these very light touch, teasing pot shots at DeSantis, who has zero chance of succeeding. Look, DeSantis is almost as popular as Trump.
Thank you, Calvin. I appreciate it.
But don't ask them to choose, because he is gone the second they have to choose between him and Trump. Don't get it twisted, okay? He has no chance. It is not happening.
But you think even in Miami and Tampa, Trump wasn't able to flip those.
All right,
districts.
let me put a poll in the chat. Do you guys think it's going to
mind
be Trump
if you
or
think
DeSantis?
that,
Let me put a poll
somebody with the charisma of a potted cactus can go up against Donald Trump and not end as just another casualty on the list. You're out of your mind. And looking at
poll in the chat, let me know what you guys think.
Rogues gallery of people who are being paid to support DeSantis, I think unless you can provide a compelling case, which today I have not heard, you are being charmingly naive in falling in line with the worst people.
I can give a very compelling case.
People in this country, the worst people in this country who want more than anything for the will of the people to be subverted. They want to suffocate Trump and all he stands for, and he is, of course, merely a proxy. He's a shorthand for a variety of things that they hate about Americans.
Trump is a symbol. He's right about that. I agree with Milo on that.
Of the South. They hate everything about the South. They hate Appalachia, with its lack of sophistication. They despise and are contemptuous of the people who love Trump. And they are the architects of their misery. I mean, there's a reason that these places that vote for Trump have drug problems. It's because the coastal elites systematically killed these towns by taking all the manufacturing abroad to weaken the...
Well, it looks like most of you guys right now think that it's going to be Trump in 2024. 66% of you so far in the poll. Please go ahead and answer that poll if you have thoughts about that. Johnny Bravo says, people like me are pissed. People like Tim said, red wave, we fell for it. I'm a bigger fan of yours now. Please keep speaking the truth. That is something, Johnny, I will always promise you to do on this channel. It was not easy for me to come out and say in May that the Republicans are fucked because they repealed Roe v. Wade. I got a lot of hate from that. A lot of people turned on me. A lot of people unsubscribed. I said it anyway because it was the truth and I was right. I will never stop telling you guys the truth that you need to hear. It might not be the truth. It might not be what you want to hear, but I will do my very best to give you an honest evaluation because I think that both sides are crazy. I am firmly in the libertarian camp. I think Republicans are stupid. I think Democrats are stupid. I think they both suck in their own different ways. And I will always tell it like I see it. Now, can I be wrong? Of course I can be wrong. I am wrong all the time. But I'm not as wrong. I'm not as wrong as much as Tim Pool is. I'm sorry. I'm just not. And so I do my best and I try to keep it real. And that's all I can do. But I appreciate the support.
Economic clout of places of Republican places.
Now,
okay, these places were deliberately and systematically sabotaged, and the result of that is like human misery on a scale that nobody really truly comprehends. There's now no reason for many of these towns in the South to exist, and they stagger on with no factories, with no jobs, with no hope, and people lose themselves in godlessness and in drugs and in all manner of self-destructive behaviors. That was done to them. That was done. That was the thing that was done to them. Okay, and Trump is a neat shorthand for the kinds of people that coastal elites consider to be beneath them. And the DeSantis project is about ensuring that Trump was a temporary, unfortunate blip, never to be repeated.
I don't necessarily think Milo's wrong there.
They think they have the right to dictate that. I don't think that's going to pan out for them. I think they're going to continue to be humiliated, just as they have been every time they've tried this since.
Let me ask you a question.
I would love to hear your case for DeSantis because
absolutely. But my first question would just be: if we took Trump and DeSantis and we made a Venn diagram.
Okay, I just want to point something out about how Milo and Tim are interacting with each other. Milo is so great because he's got this very kind of droll, I don't really need to convince you. I'm going to say what I want to say, and maybe you'll agree with me and maybe you won't. Milo is not trying to convince Tim. Tim is going to become obsessed with trying to convince Milo, though. And this is the difference in their disc profile, because even though they both have high Ds, they're both big Ds, Milo has more of the influencer style than Tim has, and Tim has more of the conscientiousness style than Milo has. Excuse me. Milo does not care if Tim agrees with him. Milo doesn't care. Tim very much cares if Milo agrees with him. Tim needs Milo to validate him. Milo does not need Tim to validate him. And that is the difference between the two of them. And guys, if you're ever in a situation where you are in a disagreement with someone about like something like this, Milo's tactic is the better to take. Just present your case and then disconnect from the answer, disconnect from the outcome. What other people think is none of your business. If they agree with you, great. If they don't agree with you, that's fine too. But you're going to live a much happier existence if you're like, I said what I said. If you agree with it, cheers. If you don't agree with it, that's fine too. Tim, you can see Tim is like gearing up. He is desperate to convince Milo because he needs that validation from Milo in order to feel good about his opinion. Because even though Tim is going to tell you that he thinks Republicans won and he was correct, Tim's not that fucking stupid. Tim knows that Republicans lost. He knows it. And now he's trying to worm his way out of the situation to present a reality in which he is correct and everyone else who disagrees with him is wrong, because Tim needs that as part of his communication style. Let me take a couple super chats. DJ, the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. Well, not necessarily. Sometimes the truth is nice too, but it can piss you off. Yeah. Sav said it wasn't quite Roe overturning that was the big one. It was what the red state legislators did afterwards. They ran with it. That was the other one. That and the moronic Lindsey Graham statement. I think all of those are true, but no, the biggest thing that Roe did, again, it allowed Democrats to raise record amounts of money and push ads into swing states for 6 months prior to the election. It was the fundraising. The fundraising was what killed them. NSX Roe leak may have been to prevent deferred ruling until after the midterms. No. That Roe leak was orchestrated by the Democrats in order to activate their base and to get record fundraising. And by the way, guys, on the topic, if you think that the Democrats ever intended to codify Roe v. Wade into law with the bill that they introduced, they didn't do it because they thought it would pass. They did it to raise money and to activate their base. And then we've got Phil. I voted for DeSantis as governor, but if he abandoned his reflected post as POTUS, I will not vote for him again. He's just a career politician at that point. I think that's a fair position to take, Phil. And that's, I think, all I have for right now. All right, guys, mount that like button. Let's keep going.
Of everything they agreed on, what are the differences that you see that DeSantis doesn't have? That what is that X factor that Trump does have that you're talking about?
Well, you just said it. Trump is
the X factor.
Trump is a once in a generation charismatic authority that cannot be replicated. It cannot be imitated. As somebody who has a little slice of that kind of charisma myself, and has experienced retinue.
Milo is so humble, isn't he?
Imitators in my
so
life.
Humble.
I can tell you, it never pans out. Trying to,
66% of you think it'll be Trump.
The bits that
I
you
guess
can
we'll
stomach from the guy everybody loves, and otherwise keep serving your special interests. Trump is a look. Whether you believe in God or not, you could express this in terms of ordainment if you wanted to, or you could just say that some
Milo's
people
a
are
shyster.
born with
you shouldn't trust him at all.
Kind of personality.
He's not wrong
that
though.
Captivates people.
But no,
in a way
Milo's
that
a con
nobody else
artist.
can.
Come on.
Can imitate.
In terms of what people are getting from him.
DeSantis, on the other hand, has no identifiable personality at all.
Well, sure. But what symbol, policy?
Just because I'm saying Milo is right doesn't mean I like him.
I think
you're making the mistake that all politically minded people make, which is assuming that people vote on the basis of policy.
I said feeling.
DeSantis has scored some victories in Florida. He's been an excellent governor in Florida, and that's where he should stay because he's been a very successful and excellent governor in Florida. But as I said, people like him in some bits of Florida almost as much as they like Trump. But ask them to choose.
Yes, I agree with this too, Morgan.
On the gain people get from Trump, they don't get from DeSantis, and that can be emotional.
It's precisely that. It's precisely that magical intangible that you try to articulate and stumble, and then when you go to a rally, you're like, "That's what I was talking about."
Kymatics, man. It's vibration. It actually alters DNA.
I don't know about that, but
sound can change the way people's body structure.
That sounds like nonsense, but
it's real. It's amazing. That's why music can heal people and stuff.
No,
so people's voices
definitely not. But there are people who are born with that gift, and they typically find some way in which to express it. Some of them become singers, some of them become actors. And
saying Trump exudes charisma doesn't quantify what's happening for us in a way that, so for me,
of course
right?
It does.
Well, no, right.
Mesmerizing.
I get that.
That's true.
But what
very
do,
much.
So a lot of people are motivated.
He's an intoxicant that blots out the sun. There is no conventional political candidate who has a chance.
What does an intelligent individual or working class person gain from that? A good feeling?
I don't know what kind of logical fallacy that is. What does an intelligent person gain?
Well, because you're saying the average person doesn't care about policy.
I can't speak for intelligent people, but
so if no one actually cares about what their politicians are doing for them, then why should I care about Trump over DeSantis?
Trump is what happened in 2016 was the last time that half this country felt good about themselves and like there might be hope. You cannot fight that.
Hope for what?
Trump.
What?
That their world would.
Hang on. Marius Carlin, you should be the one to stretch out the olive branch to all these guys. Talk to them. Les Freeman also does. You need a podcast. I have a podcast. activelyunwoke.com/podcast. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide to fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I have a podcast where I do 20-minute episodes about how to fight back against the woke left. Links in the description below. But in terms of the olive branch, listen, guys, like I said, I'm doing these streams to be able to get your guys' attention and to be able to use Tim and his name to comment on topics I want to comment on and to be able to teach things that I want to teach. But I don't see myself as a part of this whole community. And I know that people don't like to hear that, but I just don't see myself doing this sort of thing. So I appreciate your guys' support today. I'm thrilled that there are so many people watching, and I'm hoping that I'm getting to make some points to new people, and maybe new people will discover me, and maybe YouTube will actually kickstart the algorithm. And again, guys, I want to say this. My other content is a lot better. My Schools Exposed stream, my Socialism Saturday streams, my clipped content, it's usually a lot better than I think what I'm doing right now. But this is the way that I need to get your guys' attention. And so I'm willing to play the cards that I've been dealt. But man, do I really wish that you guys would just watch my other content because it's so much better.
Be ripped apart by social engineering and by other things I can't mention right now until the third hour. But there are things going on in this country that threaten the very basis of our civilization, that stem from original sins like women's suffrage, but go all the way through to more modern fads and manias to do with things we can't talk about. But there is the people are keenly aware that the physical reality of the world they live in, the facts they took for granted, are being ripped apart by the political descendants of.
Now I understand. I understand what you're saying.
So Trump in 2016. I was very blessed to have the opportunity to be such a big part of that, because
thank you, Nathan.
That was the last time that an entire half of this country felt like things might end up okay. And he turned out to be disappointing in office, but
Exactly.
How could he ever have ended up otherwise?
Not appointed really horrible people around him, like
Thank you,
John
Kelly.
Bolton and Dr. Fauci, and put him in
That's
positions
very
of power.
true.
That's one of. But one thing I want to bring up.
Trump has
Yeah.
a weakness for his family.
I want to ask.
I will say Trump is the worst people hirer on the planet. Trump is awful at staffing. Trump should. Okay, I'm going to say something that's going to make me sound like really narcissistic. Trump really should have hired someone like me to help him staff his White House, because I could have worked wonders and told him all the people who would stab him in the back. Like, Trump is horrible in his judgments about people. He's awful. NSS Base got my sub, Daddy Trump 2024, Felix VP. I appreciate that, NSX. We'll see you soon.
He finds it very difficult to say no to his family, I think. But that's the answer to your question. The reason that people will flock to him no matter what, even though they hate what he has to say about certain medical things. They hate it. They can't understand why he's so proud of it. They can't understand why he never shuts up about it. They just want him to stop.
Maybe someday.
And it's like, do you know who your base is, bro? But they'll forgive that and everything, because he was the last guy that made them feel like justice and hope was within reach.
I'll try and quantify it the way what I'm basically hearing is that there are dark forces that are destroying the fabric of this country. Donald Trump stood in front of that and put a fist up to stop it.
And said it might not be too late. So when Christianity comes into Europe in the Middle Ages, right? Its real innovation is a sort of joy and happiness that's not fueled by self-indulgence and self-destruction. So pagan societies,
Milo is making some great points
in music and substances. There's always kind of a cost attached to that kind of ecstasy, right? You get yourself caught up in some kind of hypnotic pagan trance thing. The nearest cognate we have these days is drug-fueled EDM raids, and it always comes with a cost attached. There's a price to it. When Christianity comes in the Middle Ages, you suddenly see like intensely religious people singing and dancing. They found this way to be happy that doesn't involve killing yourself in some sort of slow motion suicide. People who are full of the joy of the incarnation, and you have gargoyles pulling faces on cathedrals. You have religious people with smiles on their faces. One of the emotional the capstones of Western civilization is that joy.
About half an hour.
The characteristic of our artistic tradition is yearning or longing, right? Most great works of art are about reaching for something, about that sort of romantic frustration or whatever. But one of the sort of the emotional building blocks of our civilization is joy in Christ, happiness for its own sake.
Thank you, Aaron.
I don't think anybody could plausibly claim that society is getting happier and more joyful. What we've seen with runaway school marmishness and restrictions and regulations.
So I want to say this because I have an audience right now, so why not? Guys, please do not get yourself addicted to outrage. What Milo just said is like society is not happy and joyful, and I think that is true for a lot of people, because a lot of people, and especially people who follow this politics stuff like we do, like the people watching this stream does, please don't get yourself addicted to outrage. One of the things that I don't like about Tim Pool is because I think that he exacerbates the outrage addiction of his audience. He takes advantage of the outrage addiction in order to drive likes and clicks and to make money. But it's not healthy. Not everything is bad. Not everything is falling apart. There is still so much good in the world. If you only ever look at cringe content or content that pisses you off, you are going to get addicted to outrage, and then all you will ever see is bad in the world. If you want to live a happy life, all you need to do is make the choice to live a happy life. But if you're constantly filling your life every single day with things that piss you off, you're going to be miserable. And no one can change this for you. This is a choice that you have to make. I'm not suggesting that you can't watch content like that's about the news or things like that. You absolutely can. But just be really mindful of it, because if you look around the world and all you see is a bad, horrible place that is falling apart, you're probably addicted to outrage, and there's probably a lot of good around you that you're not seeing because you're forcing yourself to feed the outrage addiction. And by the way, no, I don't believe there's going to be a civil war, mostly because Republicans are fucking lazy. Republicans will not get out of their easy chair and go into war. Republicans won't even go to a rally unless Trump is holding it. So no, there's not going to be a civil war, mostly because the Republicans would stay home and hide under their couch and they would never fight it.
The kind of intolerable and oppressive conditions under which some people, valiantly continue to labor, is a gradual suffocating of a joy. There's nothing recognizable as comedy on television anymore.
Well, just really quick,
I'll be quick. Sorry. That gradual erosion of happiness, people feel that. They're aware of it. They won't articulate it in the way
Ain't that the truth?
But they're aware of it, and they know that the last time that something good happened was this crazy guy that they remembered from a TV show, who suddenly suddenly inspired them with confidence that maybe it wasn't too late to beat back the hordes of hell.
Yeah, it could be also the loss of religion and the overindulgent society that is being prioritized by big tech social media. But when I want to specifically talk about Trump, because I did agree with a lot of things you said, specifically that he does have a cult of personality. He did represent an idea that was going to help the American middle class.
That's a demeaning minimization of what he had. Cult of personality is never a compliment. Cult of personality means that somebody has managed to baffle and bamboozle their followers into doing destructive things. Cult of personality is
like maybe taking a product that they shouldn't be taking, that has been proven, that has been rushed to prove with Operation Warp Speed. But I just want to specifically get to the point of what happened today, because Trump's messaging doesn't look strong today. He came out and he talked about how he got more votes in Florida during his election. He talked about how
Thank you, Albert. I appreciate it.
And he openly threatened Ron DeSantis on Fox News, saying specifically that DeSantis is going to hurt himself badly if he runs.
Yo, Trump is so stupid with how he's handled the post-midterm stuff. Because here's the thing. The midterms were not Trump's fault. The midterms were not his fault. They were the Republican Party's fault. Trump is not the Republican Party. The Republican Party hates Trump, okay? They weren't his fault. But everything that Trump said after the midterm was like digging the hole for himself. He just made it worse. Trump damaged himself more through his own statements, particularly about Ron DeSantis and calling him Ron DeSanctimonious and all that stuff. Trump damaged himself more than the midterms damaged him. It was so stupid.
And that he has some kind of dirt on him that his wife doesn't even know that he's going to release to the general public.
Yes.
This doesn't seem like a unifier or someone who's going to bring the party together and help the party overall. It seems like he's looking out for himself.
Let me add one.
Even
one point.
Picasso had a blue period. I mean, Trump is permitted a wobble given what he's been subjected to.
He spent the past year just nonstop talking about the past. And when people want to hear
I agree, and I think it's a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that he currently sounds pathetic, and I think that he needs to fix it real quick. But let me tell you,
Milo is so good at this. Milo knows how to play politics,
and you best believe that will happen.
That's a video we should make. Seamus. Trump got his mojo back.
You best believe that will happen shortly after he announces, when he has kind of, I think, emotionally reinvested in the fight. But this is a guy who
Art of War.
This is
make your enemies think you're weak when you're strong, right? Is that what it is?
Oh my God!
I don't know if he's
Tim got like a Cliff Notes version of Art of War.
But I don't know if he's read his own. But he doesn't need to, because he has that gift that a couple of people per generation have, which is when they're in a good spot and they're firing all cylinders, they just have an atavistic, reflexive, natural understanding of their people, and he's an interesting anomaly, because typically you see this in Europe, where there are more explicitly established class systems, right? So class operates in America, but everybody pretends it doesn't exist, which is why you don't really understand half of what's happening. But there's a weird affinity between the aristocracy and the working classes in European countries that retain some vestige of.
NSX says Tim found his deep end with Milo. He sure did, didn't he? How much do you guys want? Do you guys think Tim is ever going to bring Milo back on this show? Let me know. Let me know in the chat if you think that Tim is ever going to bring Milo back on this show. And while you're doing that, I want to put another poll in the chat just because I'm really curious about your guys' perspectives. Do you love Tim? Hang on. Do you love Tim, hate Tim, or somewhere in between? Love Tim? I'm just curious. I'm curious about how many people are hate watching for this. And I don't really care. Like I don't really care. I'm ambivalent about Tim. Somewhere in between. Okay. Do you love Tim, hate Tim, or somewhere in between? And Johnny Bravo says Trump's purpose in politics is done. He needs to move aside and let others lead. I would love him as speaker though. Oh my God. Wouldn't it be beautiful? Beautiful if they made Trump Speaker of the House? The amount of that would happen. Guys, just so you know, I view politics purely from an entertainment perspective. I just want to laugh at it at this point because I think the country's going to hell in a handbasket. And I think that accelerationism might not necessarily be a bad thing. So I just want to laugh. If we don't laugh, we'll cry. And I think it would be the most hilarious possible outcome if they made Trump Speaker of the House. That'd be great. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone watching on Odyssey right now, and I want to make a point to thank Don Poole over on Rockfin for the tip. I appreciate the $10. Thank you so much for joining me on Rockfin, guys. I do stream on multiple platforms every single day, just in case. Now, I'm Nafissa, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. New subscriber. Love your outside the box thinking. Looking forward to more. I love Tim, and I don't think he will bring Milo back on the show. I don't think so either. Thank you for that super chat, guys. If you feel so inclined, please subscribe to the channel. I do content almost every single day of the week, not always about Tim. Hopefully never about Tim, but this is what you guys like, and so I'm willing to play the game. But I do lots of other content as well. Tomorrow, I've got a great conversation with Dave Benner about Thomas Paine. He recently published a book about Paine, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about him. And then on Wednesday, I'm bringing on Joseph Ford Cotto to analyze the midterm results. He's a Republican strategist, really, really smart guy, and we're going to have a great conversation on Wednesday. Please mount that like button for me because we don't smash on this channel, we mount.
Of aristocratic systems. And it's something to do with the fact they live in the same places. They both live, rurally in the countryside. They have some of the same hobbies. They are involved in the same kinds of
Then watch my other content.
But they also have a similar outlook on the world. They tend to be conservationists rather than environmentalists, if that makes sense. They have a kind of understanding that the anxious middle classes, the doctors, teachers, and lawyers who live in big cities can't understand. Trump managed to pull that off in a way that I don't know if any American really ever has before. Reagan maybe had a little kind of dollop of it, but not to this extent. Trump, perhaps because of his ludicrousness, his putting his name in gold on the side of his buildings, on his plane, the sort of extravagant and yet at the same time kind of mid-brow, mid-market version of opulence that he was showing people set him so far apart from ordinary people that he just managed to form this kind of like weird but real bond in a way I've only seen previously in these vestigial class systems, and it's something to do with the fact that when he's listening to his own instincts instead of certain family members and
like Ivanka Trump that told him to bomb
Milo
Syria.
was just being so judicious.
Jared Kushner, who
Oh
represents
God,
the
I
establishment
love
and is
Milo.
tied
I
to
hate
some really
Milo and I
seedy
love Milo at
and
the
bad
same
places
time.
and people.
Well, Steve got fired for the same reason that I'm going to get escorted out of here, is just finds it very difficult.
I was never on Timcast.
So
You don't know me from Timcast, I promise you. I've never been on the
dumb as a
show.
box of rocks. As soon as I read it, I was like, yeah, Steve said that.
Steve Bannon.
But this is my fear, Milo. I just want to bring this up
Thank
really
you.
quickly.
She's not a diabolical architect of her father's destruction. She's
Link is in the
very
description
easily
if you want to order it
influenced,
or check it out.
A woman who's very in love with her husband and anxious to maintain some kind of social status independent of her father, which means distinguishing herself from. Yeah.
So this is a question about the chat rules from Sam. What litmus test do you have to determine being a dick versus debate versus good faith criticism? If you insult me or call me names, you are going to get banned very quickly. because that's not good faith and that's not criticism. You are allowed to disagree with me. People do it all the time, but you are not allowed to be a dick to me and you're not allowed to be a dick to other people in the chat. I like creating a nice environment on my channel where everyone can participate and not be insulted, okay? And I know that my audience really appreciates it because they tell me that all the time. Michael, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. If you have something you want me to read, let me know. Oh, Michael says Tim Pool has become boring and repetitive. I only like to watch his guests. I've been following you on and off since your walkaway. Follow you on Minds, guys. Minds is my favorite Twitter alternative. I really like Minds a lot. And so yeah, I'm on Minds, I'm on Gab, I'm on Gitter, I'm on Truth Social, I'm on Locals is one of my main platforms though, and of course I'm on Twitter at Dr. Carlin B. Most of the platforms I'm on, I'm just Carlin on.
The views of his that are unpopular with New Yorkers.
And I absolutely agree with you, but aren't you fearful that the establishment base of the party has been kicked out or prosecuted or is being currently put in jail, while the establishment wing of the Trump administration is still
anti-establishment?
The anti-establishment is getting thrown in jail, has been kicked out of his administration, and the pro-establishment side is still surrounding him.
I don't think that whatever petty humiliations visited upon those brave enough to raise their head above the parapet, I don't think those ultimately inconsequential humiliations have much of an effect at all.
Like Ivanka's there, but Bannon's not.
Yes, but look,
Just
there are those of us who are called, compelled.
Thank you, Mama. Hope to see you in other content as well.
It didn't feel like it doesn't feel like much of a choice to me. It just feels like what I was put here to do. To charge out in front and accept the cost of that and what comes with it, and those sort of spectacles, those moments in culture, those moments in history, they linger for decades. They have an effect vastly more complex and far-reaching than people usually appreciate. And when people watched certain things happening to center-right popular.
See, isn't this chat so much nicer than Tim Pool's chat?
The thinking of
admit
Republican
it.
voters
My chat is like way nicer to be in.
There is
because I curate it.
For all of the wailing of the left about systemic injustice, which can never really be located or convincingly explained, there is a hideous injustice that has been visited on them and many of the people that they have admired and loved. That stuff shapes the way that people live and the way they think. It shapes their opinions of new players on the scene. There will always be sacrificial lambs. That doesn't in itself mean anything bad. Usually the opposite. Martyrs are remembered for a reason.
Yeah, but do you feel let down because you were one of the people that was really behind Donald Trump? So were a lot of other people that were censored, that were punished, that were banned on social media. And a lot of people think that Trump was in a position of power where he could have stood up for his supporters, stood up for all the individuals that were going down, taken down as he was in positions of power. Do you feel like
you're allowed to be a fan of Ian on my channel? Ian is my favorite person on the show.
He could have done something to big tech social media. He could have reined them in. And he could have also gone to Parler. He could have also stood up for free speech, but he didn't.
I understand why a 70-year-old man might not have comprehended the priority that was. Look, I watched the canceled summit at the White House, and I noted, like everybody else, that nobody who had actually been canceled was invited.
Yeah.
It is a fact of historical record that every year when the new interns came into the White House, they were asked if anybody was a fan of Alex Jones or Milo Yiannopoulos. And if they said yes, they were escorted off the premises.
Interns for Trump?
For the White House interns.
And you guys were the big...
Really?
Every year that Trump was in office.
Really?
Now, Trump bears ultimate responsibility
for his
hiring decisions, but the whole apparatus of the party was deeply committed to a business model that Trump threatened to wreck in
that's very true.
Generation. The gravy train might be over if he succeeded. The antibody response, that you saw to Trump was the aggressive, ruthless, sociopathic response of people who are wedded to earthly riches, seeing their hoard threatened by somebody who could, cast a spell and impoverish them.
Milo is dominating this conversation.
I wouldn't want 2016-17 to have played out any other way. What possible better story is there than of these people who were, it's like, people were robbed of us, it sounds conceited to say, but
I agree with this.
This fascinating
Absolutely.
and exciting corner, well, it wasn't a corner, it was culture really was sort of wiped out by bad people with bad intentions, and no one was ever held accountable for it, and everybody feels poorer as a result.
I don't disagree, Justin.
Without cancel culture, you wouldn't operate under the appalling conditions that you do. I don't know how you do it every day. I couldn't get up in the morning, and I that's why I don't wish for it to go any differently than it did. I think the lasting impression and the righteous indignation that produced is one of the most powerful motivating energies behind the Republican base.
Well, what do you think about Elon Musk buying Twitter and everything that's happened so
That's
far?
a good question.
Well, a sensible person would probably say they're cautiously optimistic. The thing I've been following most closely is his. So somebody sent me a Telegram channel that just kind of catalogs all of his activity on Twitter, and I don't so much look at what he tweets because that's obviously through the lens.
I do have a Discord. It's for my supporters. You can
whatever.
become a supporter by joining on
What's more
Patreon
telling,
or
and where I
locals.
think
The link is
everybody
in the
kind of gives
description
themselves
below.
away, is in those casual likes that happen at 2 PM or 2 AM, and the way he brutally handled Kathy Griffin. What I look for when I'm trying to kind of work out what's really going on, I try to think, what's making this guy smile? What is bringing this guy happiness, satisfaction, joy? Because that I find to be a reliable indicator of future behavior. So I'm looking at some of the stuff that
That's
Musk likes,
a really good
and I'm getting
observation,
a bit
actually.
more optimistic. And then when he said she was impersonated for she was banned for impersonating a comedian. That's funnier than anything that Kathy Griffin has ever said.
It's true.
That's funnier than her
did say
whole
it.
career.
Yeah.
And this tells me that he takes great personal satisfaction in seeing justice served to those who have been living high on the hog for far too long, abusing and insulting the rest of us while not allowing us to respond in kind. And that tells me that he is powerfully motivated to see justice done publicly.
So do you think that Kathy
so,
Griffin was a good move or a bad move?
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal because
it was really good.
It was. I mean, Elon is the king of vaporware, and that's very frustrating. But at the same time, he has a sense of theater and spectacle, and it was classically intelligent, Elon, because it was just the right demonstration that he meant what he was saying. He put his money where his mouth was. He put one of the most famous comedians in America in the sin bin, and then insulted her.
Amazing.
And forced her to tweet from her dead mother's Twitter account, which she then tried to play off as like knowingly ghoulish, but she just looked weird.
Yeah.
I mean, she's now. I mean, she's a damaged figure anyway. But she is a greatly diminished figure as a result of this interaction.
He didn't force her. She decided to do it herself, which is disgusting in itself.
The mom thing was just kind of like the clown world capstone. The way in which he brought her to heel by being funnier than she has ever been, which is supposed to be her job. I mean, like, who would go up against a comedian on Twitter? Anyone, because they're not funny, because they're not allowed to be anymore.
I just realized I made a massive mistake in my knitting. I just need to complain for a second. I know you guys don't care about this. I just realized I made a massive mistake in my knitting and I have to rip all this out and I'm really upset, but that's okay. I'll be able to fix it. Steven says, I've watched Tim the past 2 years, like him because he will have people like Milo on. I think Ian is there because Tim can control him. Tim cannot control Milo. Love you. Thank you, Steven. I agree with your entire super chat. Now, guys, mount that like button for me if you're upset that I have to rip out this entire section of knitting. I'm very upset with myself. This is because I didn't properly read the instructions. Let that be a lesson to you. If you're knitting a shawl, properly read the instructions.
Was laughing about our differences so that we can realize they're not that serious.
Exactly.
You know?
That's comedy in its
right.
essence.
Because when you point out in an affectionate way, amusing ways in which you differ from somebody else has the effect of bringing people closer together, not driving them apart. And a deliberate misunderstanding of this is behind, the death of Joy that I was talking about. But he chose just the right person who had already damaged herself with the Trump head and therefore was difficult to defend, to demonstrate that he really meant what he said. And then in a final act of sadism, which I enjoyed, he said, I guess if she really wants her account back, she can have it. Meaning,
oh, it was so beautiful, wasn't it?
He said for $8.
Wasn't that beautiful?
which is great too. You can say what you want about me. That's going to be $8.
Yeah.
But he basically said to her, I have humiliated you in front of the world. You can come back, but you've got to beg me.
Yeah.
That's what. And in doing
such
that,
a show of soft power.
In a sense, was speaking for all of us in that moment, and we were all kind of like, this is what we've been waiting for, and we got a little glimmer of maybe what we felt in 2016. But it was more than that. It was putting his money where his mouth was, right? Not that he hadn't done it already, but I mean, I think he borrowed most of the money for the purchase, but and put a lot of debt on the books. But who wouldn't? It was him showing us that he meant it. He actually did mean it, and it was a stand by and stand back or whatever it is. It was a just hold on. I'm going to deal with this.
You made a very important point about comedy healing society. And I think one reason why society is so ravaged is because comedy has been pretty much been made illegal. I remember your Patrick Ewing comment. We don't have to get into the specifics of it, but I remember it just being hilarious. But specifically, if you were given the chance one more time to go back on Twitter, would you take it? And how would
I want Milo back on Twitter.
How would you be different, or would you be the same?
Everybody I know has had a very different trajectory after cancellation to me. I'm sorry, people are going to know who I'm talking about, and some of them are friends and some of them used to be friends, but I've just seen people become just destroyed. I've seen people wreck themselves through this hysterical kind of manufactured grief about a Twitter account.
That's actually true. I want to say this about Twitter. Guys, I got wrongfully permanently banned on Twitter for like a month for sharing government email addresses, and Twitter said I shared private information when I didn't. I shared government email addresses. I had to get 3 letters from the state of New Hampshire basically saying to Twitter, you guys are morons. Those are publicly available information. She had permission to share them. But the reason I bring this up, and my Twitter account is like something like 70,000, or it had 70,000 at the time. It has like 67 now because I piss off conservatives all the time. But like I have like a significant amount of followers on Twitter. When I got banned off Twitter, it made no difference. In fact, I was able to raise over $10,000 in 4 days, even being banned off Twitter, for a project that I have going called Schools Exposed. You can find the link in the description below if you want to learn about it and donate to it. But I was able to still meet my fundraising goal of $10,000 in 4 days, which I thought was going to take me a couple months, even though I got banned on Twitter. So the reason I say this is, listen, Twitter is fun. And Twitter, you can make stuff go viral with, but Twitter is not the end-all, be-all of your success. You can find success in a lot of places. You can find success doing a lot of different things. You do not have to be on Twitter for that. It is really not the end of the world. And I really want people to hear that, because I don't think a lot of influencers tell you that. But I do think it's great that Musk bought it, and I think that he's taking it in a good direction.
Never that important to me. It was just one medium through which I enjoyed amusing people. But for some people, it was kind of all they had. And many of those people have been wrecked by this. They're not the same people they were in 2015. And I saw some of my friends, people I previously admired, doing this kind of, pathetic clamoring for some glimmer of former relevance, doing anything at all costs to stay in the headlines occasionally. And I frankly, I felt that it was squalid and decrepit and beneath me, and was absolutely not interested in lowering myself to that. So I think I've emerged from it the most psychologically intact, because everybody I know was driven crazy by it.
I think people are driven insane on Twitter. I really do.
they would do something that was later called damnatio memoriae. So when the emperor died, they would chip his name off buildings and smash his busts with the goal of erasing him from history. The idea was that nobody would be able to tell in future, because in Europe, in Western civilization, we used to think in terms of civilization, of legacy.
Yeah.
When the patriarchy was intact, we thought more about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so the Romans were very concerned about how they would be viewed in future. So when somebody was especially cruel or wicked or crazy, they went to great lengths to erase them from history. There's something oddly more sadistic and wretched is happening now, because people are alive to see their own erasure. And that's new in history. There's no.
You want to know what's really screwed up, and something that has actually kept me up at night? If we lose the culture war, every single person, like me, like Milo, like every single person who at some point has been in the news for doing something with the political right, if we end up losing the culture war, every single one of us will be written out of the news. So for people who don't know, I was the person who broke the news that ended up becoming the first ever lawsuit against critical race theory in the country. I was the very first person to report on that. I was the person who broke the Coke Be Less White story. I was the person who, along with help from my people in my community, broke the story about the Burlington, Vermont schools grooming kids live on the internet. I really thought about, I'm very proud of those contributions, by the way. Those are things I haphazarded into. I'm very, very proud of those contributions. But something that has actually kept me up at night is what I've done will be completely written out of history if we lose. And the same is true for a lot of people like Chris Rufo, James Lindsay. What they've done will be completely written out of history if they lose. Really keep that in mind.
There's no real close equivalent to that.
They used to have banishment.
Well, yeah, sure, but you can go and you can make a new life. But to be
miss you tonight, Sin, but have fun at that tango class.
Installed on the sidelines, watching as your name and your work and your reputation is destroyed and dismantled and urinated on. That's something that not even the most sadistic and insane Roman emperors suffered. And I can understand why a lot of people find it traumatic. Perhaps
all right, I am going to speed this up just a little bit, and we're going to see how it goes.
All that in the first place, so I didn't kind of feel a existential loss of it's a Twitter account. I still have my house, still have my health. It didn't make me wake up in a cold sweat thinking I've lost everything, as it did to some other people, because I think I maybe had a bit of a better appreciation of what it represented and what it didn't. But I understand why they're traumatized. It's been very upsetting. I personally would do nothing different at all.
Will you come back on the platform?
Sorry, that was your question. I don't know. I feel like, I kind of sort of define that era, and me coming back is going to be there's only all roads lead to some kind of disappointing tribute act to past glories, and I don't really believe in kind of trying to resurrect past successes.
I appreciate that about Milo.
And all the rest of it, but
he's forward looking instead of looking into the past.
So
more people should employ that.
If I do, it will probably be in a very different format and a very different style. It's a battlefield that I comprehensively conquered, and I don't feel the need to revisit it because I beat it. I beat it so much that they had to institute the regime that followed. They had a hashtag. I can't say the word.
They had to make rules because of you.
They did. I mean, it set the trajectory for the failure of the company. And that's something I regard with
exactly,
and satisfaction. And revisiting it would be to fall prey to a sort of debilitating.
Why do you guys think Tim is letting Milo talk this much? I've never seen Tim let anyone talk this much. Any theories in the chat? Why is Tim just letting Milo steamroll? I love it. Don't get me wrong. I think Milo's saying a lot of really pertinent and really good points. But I'm just really surprised at how quiet Tim is being.
Temptation to live.
They had their pissing contest, and then it was you know what it was like? It was like Tim gave up. Tim was like, I lost. I have no choice. I just have to release and allow this situation to unfold.
Past.
I found.
And
Let me.
Rob,
Sorry,
you're
I
ability
wanna-
to act in the present.
Milo, I want to
spoke
ask you
too
this question
soon.
because you talked about
too soon.
legacy and the Roman emperors. I'm wondering if you think the loss of that in modern civilization, that many people no longer care about their legacy and their history, is a defining factor in why things are the way they are, falling, becoming darker.
Yes, it's a product of women's suffrage. The kinds of people who were plausible candidates for office changed when the voting base broadened. And
I agree with
it's
this.
controversial to say that the sexes are different and have different priorities and different preoccupations and different ways of approaching the question, who do I want, right? I am of the view that women's suffrage changed politics for the worse, because I think it opened the floodgates to opportunistic, charming sociopaths who might previously have been weeded out.
Milo, you don't think you're an
or considered not
opportunistic,
the right
charming
kind of person.
sociopath? You
Sometimes
are
you see glimpses of
absolutely
this
an
in- I mean, if you watch Mary
opportunistic,
Poppins,
charming
right? And the dad,
sociopath.
who's kind of like vilified, Mr. Banks, is the only virtuous character in the whole thing. And he's talking about
God.
how discipline, order, and that essential English virtue, restraint, are the basis of a well function of a orderly civilization. And those are the virtues, the values, the habits that we should aspire to. And all around it, he's got this pampered, prideful mess of a wife who can't be bothered to be a mother and is churning through nannies instead because she's got her whatever. There's this witch who descends from the sky and gives the kids psychedelic drugs, I guess.
We got to remake this movie, by the
And
way.
tells them, no, it's already there. They already did it.
This is the Mary Poppins
she
thing?
kind of wears the thin veneer of rules and manners, but really she preaches chaos. And she undermines. There's stuff in that movie that is on purpose. Like in Feed the Birds, she has the audacity to claim knowledge of what the saints think about airborne rodents pooping on cathedrals, damaging the architecture. It's a very subversive movie about the triumph of witchcraft over virtue. But
Is that what it is?
Milo has done
Mary
way too
Poppins?
many
oh, it's
drugs.
hideous.
It's fascinating.
It's very dark. It's very dark.
Way too many
We have
drugs.
to do like the thing where we watch it and you do like a director's commentary kind of thing where you explain all
There's
this
a
stuff.
show in Britain, I think, called Gogglebox.
That would
where-
actually be
where the show
hilarious.
is
I
two
would
people on a
absolutely
couch
watch
talking about
Milo
the show
doing
they're watching, and it
commentary on
sounds,
Mary
like,
Poppins.
unendurable, but it's really good.
Bobblebox.
Gogglebox. I think I've never seen it, but everybody loves it. No, I mean, there's so much in that movie, to unpack the way that she presents as an appropriate candidate for the role, but then immediately sets about wrecking the social order. And it's a particular kind of Christian restraint that Mr. Banks is explaining. He's saying that we can't just give in to every reckless and wild abandoned temptation. He's saying in order to prosper and to be happy and to be successful and for our ancestors to be proud of us and our descendants to be grateful to us, there are virtues we should cleave to that involve not indulging ourselves. And what does Mary Poppins come and do? She comes in and makes a mockery of the business of tidying the room by using witchcraft. So there's no effort expended, violating the natural order of things and teaching the kids that they can do their chores without the effort required, and therefore they don't learn lessons from it. She takes them on this psychedelic journey, teaching them nonsense words. She praises.
Milo, you have availed yourself of a lot of that psychedelic journey, my friend.
They're rats with wings. That's what we call them. This lullaby to send people to sleep is about encouraging a vermin that has destroyed the architecture of London.
Do you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of like John Doyle's like neo-Gastonianism or whatever he calls it, where John Doyle makes the argument that Gaston is literally is actually the hero in Beauty and the Beast. This has a lot of like that same vibe to it. I think it's interesting. I like Milo's perspective on it. I would love to hear Milo do commentary on this movie. I just think it's a little silly. Just a little silly. It's a children's movie. Sometimes we can enjoy things that are fun.
Movie is about undermining or overturning the natural order of things. And this is what the headless, selfish, prideful mother, wrapped up in her own political escapades, neglecting her duties as a mother, is engaged in. She's engaged in the business. Now, the reason that I abhor women's suffrage is not that it was something women just demanded that they don't deserve or that they're not capable of executing. Actually, it was a manifestation of cowardice from the men, because it was a way of saying, you're on your own, handle yourself, I'm not responsible for your decision making, and therefore I can't be held accountable for what happens afterwards. Women's suffrage was a result of a crisis of confidence in the men, and this was greatly enhanced and concentrated by the 2 world wars that Europe experienced, where men, I think, basically lost the they felt like they lost the right to rule. They felt like they'd wrecked the world. I mean, it's difficult for us from this distance to appreciate the unfathomable psychopathic horrors of the Third Reich, in whatever manifestation you choose to believe, whichever configuration of historical fact, they're all terrible. How a well-ordered Christian society gets to the point of going along with that is something that ought to haunt all of us, and it haunted everybody. Because people had friends in Germany, and they're like, how could you send your kids to Hitler Youth? Well, everybody's in the Hitler Youth. It's just like the Scouts. The way that country got swept up in it, it's something dark and dangerous about human nature that we are yet to really understand.
It's the obsession with religion as an institution that's really done Christianity dirty, man. To say that it's out there, and if I think those things, then I don't have to live like Jesus was. You got to live like Jesus. That's your job as a Christian. Then you embody the Christ. That's what we need.
Well, I'm Catholic, so I can't agree with your heretical opening, but certainly we should look to Christ as an example to live by. But Christ is not an emotionally incontinent person in the Gospels. I don't think he ever laughs. He's quite a serious guy. And
what are you talking about?
Things you couldn't say on YouTube.
What are you talking about? Christ damned a fig tree. Do you really think that Jesus Christ was serious when he damned a fig tree? No, he was not.
He is actually quite a profoundly serious figure, despite the great joy he brings into the world by his selflessness, his sacrifice.
But very interestingly, I just also want to bring up
what he lays down for us is what became the great classic.
Milo is basically holding court right now.
I'm gonna say no, because I understand that there are consequences that come with short-term pleasure, and this really is the most useful lesson that anybody can teach their children. And Mary Poppins is just an extended undermining of the most valuable lesson that any parent can teach their child.
Yeah, and when you look at modern entertainment, you do see a lot of those themes regurgitated and exaggerated, especially with some of the
things are just grotesque.
Yeah, it's unwatchable because it's not entertainment; it's propaganda. A lot of it is sometimes, if we're lucky, it's subconscious.
Mary Poppins is not propaganda.
In your face, the larger messaging of not just degeneracy, short-term pleasures, but just also destroying not only race relations, sex relations, but destroying kind of humanity from the inside with this psychological mass hypnosis, as I call it.
The individual subject matter are all arguable, and we'll probably agree about all that. But the real characteristic that it has, the way to understand it, because it's happened before in history, the nature, its character, its nature, is that we're entering a late decadent period of gloating that is common to all illegitimate tyrannies. And the one we have right now is something that Orwell didn't foresee: a weird blend of private enterprise and government, run by the same people. Who operate both for their
fair enough. I can agree with him on that. Fair enough.
In spiritual ways, in financial ways, in all kinds of ways, culturally, you name it. In every conceivable way, our lives.
And I'm going to take this opportunity to say, if you really want to see some Orwellian shit, and I mean really hardcore Orwellian stuff, you need to check out my Socialism Saturday streams. We have done multiple streams now where we have watched socialists discuss why they think that we need to abolish the family entirely and have all children born via surrogacy. That comes from the Communist Manifesto. That is argued in the Communist Manifesto. If you haven't read a copy of the Communist Manifesto lately, you really need to read it. It's free on the internet. You can find a PDF to download right now. You don't even have to pay money for it. But if you are interested in Orwell and dystopian reality, come and join us on Saturdays for Socialism Saturday, because I continue to be amazed at the things that socialists say out loud on the internet that no one is talking about and no one hears, because people don't want to watch their content. I understand watching their content is painful. I understand I'm a little bit of a masochist because I'm obsessed with dystopian culture. I'm obsessed with dystopia. And it just so happens that we have access to real life dystopia. And by the way, that real life dystopia that we watch on Socialism Saturday becomes the talking points of the Democratic Party not too long, a couple of years, maybe like 5 years after the socialists say it in their conferences. So when you're watching socialism, you are getting a sneak preview into where the Democratic Party is going, and I am absolutely convinced that at some point we're going to find some socialist video on YouTube that has like 87 views that lays out exactly and explicitly what they did in 2020. There is no doubt in my mind at all. Emphasizes money or narcissistic supply the sole motivator for intellectuals to speak on behalf of people they don't realistically represent or convene with. I think it depends on the person and the circumstance emphasized. I think it could really go either way. Johnny Bravo, well, I wonder what he thinks of the Wizard of Oz. Oh, that's a great question. I would love to ask him that question.
Our society are getting dramatically worse with each day that passes. And my decision personally has been to refuse to play along with that. And I won't operate within those rules because I think it's beneath the dignity of a human being to do so. I don't mean that as an insult to you guys, because I admire the discipline that it takes, and I understand the calculus that you've made. Right, we're gonna say less but to more people. I totally get it. And there's a spectrum on which we all operate. I'm on the opposite end to you guys, so you guys and I have taken a different strategy to the same problem. Both are right and both are needed. We just are on opposite ends of it. But this gloating, the gleefulness with which they revel in their unaccountable and untrammeled power over us is intolerable and unsustainable. And when that happens in history, the empire in question typically falls really quickly, shortly.
Well, I guess we'll see. Phil says Peter Pan is a vampire and Captain Hook and the pirates are former Lost Boys trying to save Wendy and the rest of the kids. I agree with that, Phil. I think that is a really good interpretation. Let's talk about that on our Zoom call. Guys, by the way, if you are a member of my supporter community, either on Locals or Patreon, I'm sorry, I pushed back the start of the Zoom call tonight from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. We will be having the Zoom call round about 8 p.m. whenever I finish up this stream, but because we've got so many new people watching today, I wanted to make sure they felt welcome and I wanted to kind of see the stream through. I didn't expect this, but I think it's great, and it is the whole reason that I'm reacting to Tim Pool content, because apparently you guys will only watch my content when Tim Pool's in it, and I really hope you watch some of my other content as well. Sin says, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, C.S. Lewis wrote this after he became a Christian, and I can hear Milo now. Oh, God, I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Thereafter. And when big empires fall, they don't fall like you think they're going to. They don't kind of ossify. They don't disintegrate. They evaporate. It happened to Rome. It happened to the USSR, and it will happen to America.
Around that time period.
The vector for America is probably going to be the petrodollar and the dollar generally.
I asked you about the loss of. I guess we don't care about legacy anymore, or at least many do, but many don't.
It's a shift in priorities from the widening of the electorate.
Right. You mentioned this. I want to specifically go in that direction. You're saying that women don't care about legacy as much as men do, or what's
Finish
the
ripping out my knitting.
How does that happen?
A system working perfectly is a system where everything is in its right place, performing the function for which it was designed. Okay, and if any component in that system is improperly utilized or damaged or in the wrong place, the whole thing can seize up, and sometimes it can be destroyed. A fine watch from a Swiss watchmaker will be irretrievably wrecked by a component being moved from here to here. You can't fix it. Only the very expensive ones, but you get the point. I take the same view of creation. We ought not tamper with the order that has been laid out for us, and there are different, distinct. Equal but different, I suppose people want to say. There are distinct. I don't think they are equal. I think women are greatly venerated and always have been. And when women ask for equality with men, I'm of the view that they are silly in asking for a demotion. What we shouldn't tamper with is the proper order of things. There's a proper order to the physical world, to the natural world, that reflects the heavenly order, that represents the supernatural, that reflects the supernatural. Right? It's the echo of it. And
isn't it the truth?
Have men doing things that women should be doing, and women doing things that men should be doing, and when we commingle the definitions of those two things, we risk the whole system falling down. And I think that's what's happening. I think that's what we're witnessing. And Camille Paglia, the feminist critic, says that the one characteristic, an infallible guide to imminent collapse.
I don't buy into any of Milo's theory here, by the way.
Is an obsession with, she calls it kind of gender madness, right? Without getting into the subject.
Listen, here's my view on the whole gender thing. And this is going to be controversial, so some people are just going to have to rein in their feels about it. I believe that every single person is made up of both masculine and feminine energy. Okay? So I am a woman. I'm obviously a woman. I'm not like trans or anything. I have a lot of masculine energy. I've always been able to outpower men. I've always been able have been like much better around like the guys. I like hanging out with guys way more than I like women. I like to think that I tend to be more analytical than I think most women are. But like I have a lot of masculine energy. There are also women who have more feminine energy than I do. There are men, and I would argue that Milo is one of them, who have more feminine energy. There are also men who have more masculine energy. I think Luke, to a certain extent, probably has the most masculine energy of anyone on. Well, I guess Tim has masculine energy too. But anyway, the point is that we are a mix of both. And that means we can access both those sides of ourselves. And I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that like, all women can't do this or all women suck at that or all men can't do this or all men suck at that. Like it's not fair and it's not looking at it from an individualist perspective. We are all individuals. Some people are more masculine, some people are more feminine. It's just the way it goes. And I think that people should be looked at for what they present and what they offer rather than what's between their legs.
In a way that we're dangerous. A preoccupation with innovative and sometimes confusing new definitions of things, a sort of confusing of this fundamental natural law. This is the moment at which civilizations lose their way, and they don't last long after that. So I think that it is a man's responsibility to protect and to provide. I think that men go out and create all these extraordinary things ultimately to impress women. When men want to impress other men, they take creatine and work out. That's always for other men. Women don't care about physics so much. That's always for men. Something
good for you, LK. We'll hopefully see you on the next Zoom call.
When men go out
and
good
for you.
Achieve these great feats.
Go out and do
civilizations,
things.
Constructing
don't just complain. Go out and do things, guys.
They want access. They want in, and they want to. It's a romantic project.
I would disagree with that emphasis.
It's beneath the dignity of wives and mothers.
I totally said that he was on drugs. I really think he's on something.
Give them, the petty workings of these political experiments that men have come up with to occupy themselves, to distract them with that stuff.
Starting at 8 p.m.
And I don't think it's something that women especially love. I mean, women kind of hint this, they send us subtle indications that this might be the case. You see very often women kind of adopt the politics of their husbands. It's kind of a phenomenon that it's actually more pronounced the more extreme that the husband's politics are. So you have these women who fall in love with like jihadis, and they adopt radical Islam, and then they go husband surfing because their husbands all going to do suicide bombings. They bounce from husband to husband, but they start off like perfectly normal. Jihad Jane, Jihad Jenny. There's a Samantha Lewthwaite. Loads of examples of this. Women who just kind of adopt any politics at all to get the guy, right? And this is their way of telling us that they don't really care. It's just like they have other priorities. They want to feel safe. They want to feel secure. They want to feel loved, provided for, protected. And part of doing that is sparing women from the ugly, baffling, and
we'll see, Jennifer. We'll see.
Opportunists and freaks and inappropriate people. They're all the people who want power, right? The people in politics. And so we suffer them.
But you think women shouldn't be in politics?
I think that in America, because American men are so utterly pathetic, all talk and no action, that I find American women much more impressive than American men. And there are lots of examples of women having to step up where men have left vacuums.
I agree with him there. Carrie Lake as an example.
Readily tell you that in a perfect world, she wouldn't have to be doing this, but she felt that it was necessary and that she was the right person at the right time, in the right place. Because no man is doing it for her. So I see her as a kind of a sort of a Boudica, Joan of Arc kind of a warrior queen archetype. She's doing the thing that no man will step up and do. And every couple of 100 years, men need a reminder like that they're reneging on their responsibilities. I don't think it's the proper arena of women to concern themselves with the intricacies of politics, because they have a higher and holier and much more important purpose to which their skills are better suited. And I think that when in the
I agree with this, because apparently I have to put Tim Pool's name into anything I do to boot the algorithm. But I really do want to encourage people to watch my other content because it's like way, way, way better than this. Not that this is fine. This is fun. I'm not saying anything against it. Like, it's okay to do streams like this every once in a while. I'm happy to do it. I just wish there were other ways to kickstart the algorithm that were not this particular thing. Mimi says, Carlin, I'm late to the stream, so put the stream back to the beginning. Carlin, well, that's not going to happen, but you're joking. Carlin, I say do what you have to, and it's okay to not be above doing it. Love you, Carlin. Keep up the great and super hard work. I do appreciate that. Listen, man, YouTube's going to YouTube, and I love doing YouTube. I love streaming, But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And if you guys want me talking about Tim, I guess that's what I'll give you. But again, I do other content too, much more than this.
The workplace out of necessity, and then you have, the invention of the washing machine, which frees up this enormous amount of time. Once women had been pleaded with to come and keep the factory line running, nobody felt they had the right, coming back from war when they wrecked the world, to say, "All right, back in the kitchen, love." So they just sort of accepted the new reality. We can see what's happened as a result. There's been a feminizing of our institutions. Police forces have started to act more like school teachers, where they're kind of scolding people for using the wrong language rather than secret criminals. There's all kinds of hints that
I
the
don't know about
priorities,
that.
that the mission statements, that the modus operandi.
That seems like the British police and not the
and now
American
private enterprises
police
too have changed, and I don't think for the better as a result of what was missold to women as emancipation and was actually their enslavement.
Would you advocate for repealing the 19th Amendment?
Absolutely.
For those that don't know, it's the women's right to vote.
We owe women an enormous apology for the imposition that we placed on them by this grievous ongoing offense.
You guys know
to get
that
them
women
to
can make the
oblivious
choice not to
politics, and they
vote,
should be
right? It's a
concerned with,
perfectly valid choice to make.
raising the next generation.
Yeah, I like talking
perpetuating
about the disc
dynasty,
stuff.
which is of course the thing that the man is worrying about, and finds he finds a wife that he
We'll do
believes will
more
be
of
a
that.
partner with him in that task. And while he's having these grandiose thoughts and building these extraordinary structures, it's the women that are doing the hard work of raising the next generation. They can't do both. And I think now we've seen, and women are beginning to admit in columns in the Atlantic.
Well, it's a fine line for everyone,
they
isn't
couldn't
it?
do both, and they wish they'd done the other one.
Why do you think this is happening? I mean, there was a big push by the industrialists, individuals like David Rockefeller, that wanted to, of course, make sure wages were lowered, make sure that there was a bigger tax base. Mm-hmm. There was a political push, a psychological push, but there's also a biological push. If you look at men, their grip strength is going down. Women's grip strength is going up. Men's testosterone is going down, their sperm levels are going down, reproduction rates are going down, family units are going down. There's a lot of different things that we could attribute.
It's so delicious.
But I think
Code Red.
Yeah, stop it! Don't you, Milo? How dare you? I disagree with you so much right there.
I will drop dead because of Code Red. I will.
You probably will.
It will be the thing that kills me. I will be so fat.
I don't know if those rumors are just urban legends or whatever.
But I want to get back to this question here: is what is responsible for it, and how do we fix this overall problem? How do you see how do you quantify the problem? How do you fix it?
So capitalism wants maximum freedom because maximum freedom means maximum profits. And that works on both the supply and it works at every point in the chain, right? So the more workers you have, the better. The more people who can work, the better, because the more diverse a workforce is, the less likely they are to unionize, which is why big business is in favor of diversity, because it makes their workforces easier to abuse and to manage. That's the reason big business likes diversity, because if you have a workforce made up of people who can barely speak each other's languages, they are never going to get together to be the boss.
Well, let me add to that too. When the rules are so atomized, you can get someone in trouble for anything. Anybody who's acting out of line, you can say, oh, well, you're violating this provision.
This, I believe, is a manifestation of a frustrated maternal instinct from women who...
Let me ask for people who have seen this. We have about 50 minutes left of this, and I do have to leave at 8 because I will be doing a private Zoom call with my supporter community. If you would like to join us for a private unrecorded call, I do these twice a week with my supporter communities. All you need to do is be a supporter on either Locals or Patreon. Around about 8 o'clock, I'm going to send out a Zoom link at 8 o'clock, and then we get on a Zoom and we talk all night. And the way to join that is by following the link at the top of the chat. Become a supporter at activelyunwoke.com/support. You can also follow the link in the description below. But I want to ask, are there any more good moments in this that we need to make sure we watch where Tim and Milo kind of go at it a little bit for people who haven't seen this before? My thought was we get up to the point where they do super chats and we kind of cut it there. But if there are any more parts in this that people know about that they want to make sure we watch, the Ian Smackdown, let me know around about when that happens, Philip, and I will make sure that we watch it, because it's a little bit tame right now. I'm not going to lie. It's I really wanted more of a pissing contest between Milo and Tim. And it was Milo smacked Tim right between the eyes at the very beginning of the show, and then Tim gave up, which I kind of love. Milo overpowered Tim so easily. Okay, so they're going to talk about LSD. Oh, good. Good. All right. No, he did. Milo put Tim in his place, and Tim shut his mouth. The fact that Tim stopped talking is all the proof we need that Milo put him in his place. Thank you. But what Milo did was so kind of like, it was so beautiful because he did it in a way where like you couldn't hate Milo. You couldn't hate him. That's what everyone needs to learn how to do. Milo is an expert politician, and it's beautiful to watch.
Should have had children and didn't, and it's become a sort of it's become this kind of out of control, turbocharged policing of others. This attempt to impose order on the world.
Okay, we'll watch the LSD thing before we wrap up.
I lay the
promise.
blame for this at the feet of men who, it's the job of a husband to establish the parameters within which his family will operate. These are the things that I will accept, and these are the things that I will not accept. And he counts on his partner.
No, I don't think
to,
that's a serious thing. I
express
don't.
those wishes in her daily
He
decisions
says it
and how
because
she
it
raises the children.
riles up his base.
Well, men haven't been doing that for a really long time, and the result has been anarchy, and not just chaos, but like true epistemological anarchy. They're like multiple fact universes in America now. There are people who believe completely
fair
different
enough.
pictures of what they think are.
Maybe I should watch Nick Fuentes
because
sometime.
Instead of politics being the art of the possible grounded in reason, now we have competing narratives, and these narratives are completely factually divorced from one another, and in most cases from reality themselves as well. This is the result of this is a feminization of discourse because we become untethered from Mr. Banks's reason and discipline, which always falls on the man.
Don't you love how conservatives basically went from pro-life women outnumber pro-choice women and pro-life women will save us all to we need to repeal the 19th Amendment because these women don't know how to vote. I love it.
To hold in line, and instead we begin to indulge in to put it in grammatical terms, right? Women live in the subjunctive; they live in the world of the possible, right? And the economy of value for women is completely different than it is for men. No man really understands until he has it explained to him why women like expensive handbags. It's like, why do you want this thing that costs $5,000? It's not worth $5,000. Everybody knows it's not. What he doesn't understand is that the price point is part of the feature set for a woman, because when she exhibits this handbag to others, she's signaling that she has snagged a high status husband, that she's secure, that she's safe, and that she's part of
he's not wrong about that,
an ongoing and secure dynasty that will outlive her, and that she has acquired a secure and enviable position in the social pecking order. And that social pecking order, is a preoccupation of the parish scolds of popular legend. Men don't understand that.
Hang on, I gotta take this super chat. Mimi, thank you. You are one of the few who give us real info on the horrors of socialism. Socialism sat a plane I watching, but Carlin, I'm not getting notifications on YouTube. That drives me crazy unless Socialism Saturday is not on YouTube. Yeah, I really wish I could kick YouTube and it would fix the notification issue. But all I can say is that I do post content pretty much every single day of the week, except not on Sundays all the time, but I do post them on Sundays sometime. So if you're not getting notifications about my channel, it's because YouTube isn't serving the notifications. So I'm sorry. I wish there was something I can do about it, but make sure if you join my locals, kb.locals.com/support, I always send out notifications through my locals. You can join as a free member. You don't have to pay. And that way, at least you will get the notifications when they come out. And you'll know when I'm going live because I do announce these things to my locals. But YouTube gonna YouTube, man. I'm doing the best I can. And I appreciate everyone that's joined me here for the first time. If you're new to my channel, I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll ring that bell to turn on notifications and that you'll mount that like button for me. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it.
Buying the big diamond that makes no sense because the association with diamonds and eternity and love is an invention of the ad industry, right? Like,
it was a scam.
It's a complete confection, but it's meaningful now and it matters now because it's an expression of something that women want to see in their husbands is that they will do anything, the grand gestures, the romantic gestures, even where it imperils their own pleasure, well-being, etc., to publicly demonstrate their love for this woman, right? And then they want to build a home with a man.
Right now, I am streaming on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Getter and Facebook. So I'm streaming on multiple platforms, but YouTube has the best chat. You're welcome to watch on whatever one you want, but I don't really pay attention to the chats on the other ones just because it's too much.
And who they don't necessarily always agree with, but they always admire and respect. And the deal is, I'll do what you say, even when I don't agree with you, because I respect and admire and trust you enough to let you set the parameters for the household. When men fail in their duties to set those parameters, women expand endlessly with no limits, and we see that
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
in HR departments. I mean, the reason that people like me can't get podcast deals is that the ad sales department is entirely feminine. It's 100% women.
That's a really good idea.
And so the vice president will be like,
really
I love
good
you.
idea.
I just can't get these women to sell you to advertisers because they're going to come up with a bunch of
Odyssey,
reasons
best
why you're
YouTube
whatever.
alternative.
The economy of value is so completely different, and you know, when people stray into areas that are not their proper domain, and that could be a husband interfering in something that happens domestically, or it could be a woman in a conventionally male sphere. It's a trap. It's an illusion. It seems at first like freedom and emancipation, but actually it is enslavement.
Yeah, just really quick, I agreed on a lot, but I disagreed on one thing. I don't think it's related to anarchy. I think it's related to centralization, especially when it comes to things like the ESG score that has been pushing a lot of these social norms onto people. I think, you know, the industrialists, the governments, especially with the policies they put forward, the initiatives that they put forward, and what they do and what they incentivize truly has been leading to a society that is creating more slaves and the state having more power and more
There's a
Awesome, Mama,
centralizing
welcome.
tendency in matriarchies because they're trying to recreate the patriarchy that's let them down. They're trying to recreate the patriarchy that failed them by disappearing, right? So they're trying to recreate it, except they don't know how because they don't have the tools, right? Just like, you know, the reason Satan rebels and becomes Lucifer is that he is driven mad by jealousy because God gives women a gift that angels don't have, and it's the gift of co-procreation with God, right? When you within the holy sacrament of marriage are blessed with a child, you don't just create a child with your husband, but you are co-creating with God, because while you produce the biological matter, God imbues that child with an immortal soul. So in that sacrament,
this is a little much for me. This is a little preachy for me.
Like, you know, we can talk about it forever, but the angels didn't get that, and driven mad by jealousy and rage at what he saw as the sort of preferred younger sibling. This is the basis for the rebellion, right? That should frame our understanding when we talk about this. It's not that we think that women are stupid or incompetent. Clearly, they can manage perfectly well in these spheres. Whether the effect is good or not, you know, is another matter. But clearly, they can handle it. But it's allowing, encouraging them or enticing them to do so, as big business does, because it's good for the bottom line, is only possible when you set to one side the reality of the magic and responsibility and incredible gift that women have that we don't.
I thought that was really
that's a little preachy.
I guess inspiring what you said about society kind of becoming overly mothered because women aren't having enough children, and so they're turning that motherly instinct outward.
Yeah, it's got to go somewhere. They're built for it. And if they choose, if they are lied to and choose their career over having babies, it has to come out somewhere. So what do? They end up in HR, where they get to make rules, just like they would if they were a mom.
This is funny. We talked about this because there was a story we read, and I mentioned that there are some women, not all, not most, but there are some women we see posting on things like Tinder that they wish they just were able to have families and didn't have to have careers. And the Young Turks took that and turned it into Tim Pool thinks all women, or some like Tim Pool's ridiculous argument about women. It's fascinating that you can't even acknowledge that some women feel that way.
There's a counterintuitive but inescapably true fact, which is that the freer women have gotten, the more miserable they have become.
Well, how about just one quick point? In Sweden, where women have more equal access, the gender differences are actually more pronounced.
Yes, because people are so desperate for them. You can neatly trace the history of women's emancipation, and it tacks directly on to how women report their own increasing misery.
And also the antidepressant use, and also big pharma tablets, SSRIs, and antidepressants, which have gone up with that unsatisfaction.
1 in 10 Americans on antidepressants. Half of all Democrat women say they've been to the doctor for mental health problems. You know, that's not normal, and it doesn't happen elsewhere in the world. It doesn't happen.
One might suggest that might be a problem with doctors overprescribing antidepressants, which I think they do with all populations, to include kids. Listen, I'm going to do my little TED talk here. There is no fucking reason that kids should be on medication unless it's like an emergency. I understand, like, the overprescription of ADD and ADHD medication is so incredibly harmful to kids. It is unbelievable. There was a time when kids survived without being overly medicated. And I would say the same is true for antidepressants, and not just for kids, but for all populations. And listen, man, like, I'm not opposed to, if you need help for a little while, then fine. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying you're a bad person. Sometimes we all need a little bit of help. But for people who become completely reliant on antidepressants, it is not healthy for you. There are other ways to mitigate this. You can meditate, you can exercise, you can control your diet. Antidepressants for a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people, is just a complete abdication of responsibility. I said what I said. I'm not sorry about it. Raphael says, I don't throw this accusation willy nilly, but one look at his Telegram and you enter a hateful, unchecked anti Semitic cesspool. I agree with that. And I'm actually in Milo's secret Telegram group that he doesn't always open access to. And I somehow got into it one day when he opened access to it. That Telegram group is crazy. They're crazy. It's like a guilty pleasure for me sometimes to go on Telegram and look in these groups and see what they're saying. That Telegram group is nuts.
Places.
Yeah, we medicate their misery.
And yes, and this is, well, we the pharmaceutical model of mental health is only capable of treating symptoms. It can't fix what's wrong with you because it doesn't account for the existence of a soul at all. It treats the body as a purely mechanical machine, and if only we could find out which bit needs more oil or which.
All right,
bit
we're
is,
almost at the
needs
LSD
replacing,
conversation.
we
Don't
fix your
worry, we're
depression.
almost
Well,
there.
that's not the nature of depression. That's not the nature of most mental illnesses. We just recently discovered, finally, that the psychiatric industry admitted that there is no basis for the accepted wisdom that depression is a chemical imbalance.
Yep.
They can't find it. They can't prove it. So it might be that depression is a product, maybe of guilt about sin that has not been.
I will say this: I get depressed every so often, and I know a lot of people get depressed every so often. And when I get depressed, I can't get out of bed. I don't eat. Like, it's really bad. But I have learned how to train myself to identify, okay, my body feels like this. These are my behaviors. I'm depressed. Something is going on. And I work my way out of the depression by taking responsibility for what's happening. Now, I'm not saying everyone can do that. I'm a mindfulness expert. I wrote a book about mindfulness. I know how to pick up on and identify signals in my body and to be able to interpret those signals to say, okay, what is going on with me mentally? Because our body follows where our brain is. And what does that mean for what I need to do? There's nothing wrong with being depressed. It happens. Like, life happens, man. It's not always roses and like rainbows and flowers and things like that. But you have to take responsibility for what you're putting in yourself and your own frame of mind. And you can get to a place where you can identify, here's what's going on and here's what I need to do about it. My book about mindfulness is called Zen Your Work. It's about mindfulness in the workplace. It's about like highly practical things you can do to be mindful in your office so you don't go insane or kill your coworkers. I've written 2 books. I've written Zen Your Work and I've written Actively Unwoke. Both are available on Amazon if you feel so inclined.
That no absolution has been sought for, of terrible things, all kinds of possibilities.
Let me
open up.
Milo,
but the current system is totally incapable of healing. It's only capable of
Dealing with the symptoms,
placating in a way that produces new and worse problems like addictions.
Yep.
I mean, the range of temptations that are available. So we don't understand addiction very well because we don't understand the brain very well. But the one thing we do know is the main difference between people who relapse and people who don't is it available? Is it right there? Right. So people who stay away from from the junkie hangouts and all the rest of it, it's not in front of them, so they're less likely to relapse. That's the one thing we do know about it. Right. We are force fed. I mean, this country force feeds people with a bewildering array of potential addictions, whether it's to compound interest or competitive.
If you don't think that I view mindfulness and God as the
none
same,
of you own your cars. None of you own your car.
You're probably not
I've
going to fit in
never
here.
Bought a car in any way other than outright and in cash. And in this country, people burn money jumping from car to car, like saying goodbye to 20 grand each time and making endless repayments that will never be fully paid down. Yeah. I mean, your whole life is enslaved to interest, to people who don't do anything for the money they make, which is usury, which is a sin. People who are entirely parasitic. I mean, the basis of value in the economy is human labor, right? It's people doing stuff. These industries that are designed to profit without effort. There's a reason that the church, regards this as sinister and sinful, because it is. And the manner in which we are presented, I mean, I think that mostly what people said about video games in the 80s and 90s was stupid. And what people said about Marilyn Manson was like pretty stupid.
I disagree.
But the religious right was pretty bang on about everything else. Now, however, when you consider as part of the overall kind of junk food, drink, prescription drugs, I mean, I can't. It's a wonder that I think every American basically has 2.
I agree with this.
Of the 10 categories.
But Klaus Schwab,
wrestling,
yeah.
this is not normal. This is not normal.
Yeah.
This is an abusive relationship.
You can commune with God through mindfulness and meditation.
I'm sorry. In just the same way that many of these
We'll talk about that another time.
The failure of the institutions to protect people is a result of American independence, because when you throw away the monarch, you don't really just get rid of him. You make space for something else to move in. And you might not have control over that. So America is now in a position where they are ruled more brutally and more savagely and more abusively than any monarch in living memory anywhere in the world. But they don't know the names of the people who are doing it to them.
It's central banks,
and they
Federal
have
Reserve, that's for sure.
Certainly they're a part of it. But what instead you have is the empty pomp and circumstance of the 4th of July. This rippling flag. Why do you love the flag so much? Because there's room to hide behind it. And the people who are really running the show, whose names none of us will ever learn, are what moved in. Instead of a king, instead of having a king, and people will differ on this very violently. I appreciate that. I'll probably take a minority view on this, but when we think about how the earthly order should reflect the heavenly order, that's the sort of basis of legitimacy of the papacy and the monarchy, right? The way that societies are ordered reflects the heavenly order and conforms to nature and the way that and our nature, the way that we were designed, the way that we work, and those are the best and happiest systems to live under. They work the best. The removal of the monarch from the top, and then these kind of weird self-sabotaging things like we're just gonna trust that everybody's going to be Christian, so we'll outsource morality to Christianity, and we'll give people these extraordinary freedoms that don't exist anywhere else. That wreck society unless the whole population is Christian, right? You cannot give people the First and Second Amendment unless they're Christian. You just can't, because only with that kind of
then it's not the First Amendment, Milo.
Can you trust people with weapons of war?
Then it's literally not the First Amendment.
Responsibility that comes with knowing that you have to go to confession for lying.
For
can you be
fuck's
trusted
sake.
with freedom to say anything without consequence?
I agree with your statement on second. I think that the founding fathers' perspective on society dictated their view of why everyone should be armed. They trusted each other. They all thought each other had some fear of doing wrong.
I just don't think they anticipated that the society would become godless. I think we're talking about 1700s, right? I mean, you're living in.
You really think that the founding fathers wrote the First Amendment, which specifically says that we will not establish a state religion, and then wrote the Second Amendment to make sure that Christianity was enforced? Bro, come on. Freedom of religion means freedom of religion for everyone, not just freedom to choose what version of Christianity you want to practice. That is absurd.
You're living in the wake of the King James Bible, which changes everything, because it's people sometimes try to like demean it by saying it's the greatest work of literature in history, which is true, but stop. The way that the America's founding documents are phrased and the way that the founders spoke is heavily influenced to the point of dictated by the language and the style of the King James Bible.
Actively Unwoke is, if you just look up my name on Amazon,
both
books will come right up.
Extraordinary moment.
Actively Unwoke is activelyunwoke.com. Zenyourwork is zenyourwork.com. That website
defines everything that follows it.
Just go to Amazon.
I don't know. Did they ever imagine? I mean, when they enshrined freedom of religion, they were thinking about just like making sure that Protestant denominations weren't at each other's throats.
No,
they weren't intending for Ilhan Omar to come in and say some people did something, and for her to be sitting in Congress,
Milo is
allegedly
wrong.
from a family involved in
provably
very ugly things in her home
wrong.
country of Somalia. She couldn't possibly have sought election in this country for virtuous reasons. I can't imagine what they would have been. This is not what was intended, and that's this ugly phrase, Christian nationalism.
I've agreed with a lot of what Milo said tonight. He's not
what it really
correct
is,
about this. He's
in
wrong.
my view, is a restitution of the original vision for America, but with a few more safeguards in place. So it's a acknowledgement that this country doesn't work without Christianity. It falls to pieces, and it is falling to pieces thanks to godlessness. Why? Because those understandings of the proper places and roles and functions of things aren't in the law anymore.
Oh, thank you, Phil. Phil put the link to Zen Your Work in the chat.
In Europe, but this rupture that happens with the sedition and getting rid of the king resets the clock in America, and there's none of those things to draw on. And just trusting that people are going to stay Christian and therefore be nice to each other was stupid.
One thing I don't necessarily agree with is that there's a
And
saying, you know, we're made in the
actively
image of God. The
Thank
universe
you,
is
Phil.
like, we're like fractals of reality. So like there's one
here we
God,
go,
hence
here we
one
go.
monarch,
I don't,
and that is
I don't
natural.
know any Christians who talk about fractals of reality.
Well, it's just scientific, you know, observations.
Do you do a lot of LSD?
Not a lot, but I have
A little bit.
That's a yes. That's a yes. Keep your dosages low enough to stay sane, my friends.
A very dear friend of mine who's a very gifted photographer does little micro doses of LSD, and he has a similar phrasing to you.
Oh, cool. Well, what I'm thinking is,
you see, everybody thinks that they have this extraordinary, unique experience that turns them into a genius, but they all sound exactly the same. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Okay.
oh, so there's one God. I agree that there is, in one sense, one overarching magnetic field or whatever the hell God is. But then there's also within that, it can be broken down to do infinite gods, all infinite fields creating one mega field. So in that sense, we could have one king, or we could have a decentralized system of many, many local leaders.
I think you've broken your brain.
Well, it's two ways of looking at one
This
thing.
sounds like astrology for men. What LSD does in creating those new connections in the brain, which produce the moments of inspiration, is it disorders the established pathways. And while it's thrilling and exciting and can make people sound very interesting,
It disorders
also-
the established path. Okay, what Milo doesn't understand is the brain is a malleable thing based on what thoughts you are focusing on every single day. If you choose to focus on, if you have been focusing, going back to the outrage addiction thing that we were talking about earlier, if you have been focusing on negative news, crazy Civil War, Tim Pool outrage, and you're only focusing on negative things every single day, your brain is going to reorder itself so that it is prone to look for negative things. If one day you say, I don't like being miserable in my life anymore, and you start to proactively focus on positive things, eventually, after about 30 days, because it takes about 30 days to build new neural pathways in your brain. That is why they say it takes 30 days to build a habit. You're building new neural pathways in your brain. Your brain is literally changing. It is rebuilding itself every single time you choose to focus on positive things more than you focus on negative things. The brain is rewiring. There is nothing that is concrete about this is the order and this is the order and this is how it works and this is all it's been. No. How you see the world depends entirely on the things that you choose to focus on. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is no good, there is no bad. There is no better, there is no worse. We are all here to have a different human experience. And you're going to have whatever experience you choose based on where you choose to put your energy. Have I ever done acid? No, but I have done ayahuasca on several occasions, and I'm not sorry, and it's great, and the world would be a much better place if everyone did ayahuasca at least once. And I've done DMT too, and DMT is next level. Next level.
Gets in the way of critical thinking because there's a sort of people have done a lot of LSD. They have this infatuation with this way they see the world now. They think they've got this insight that nobody else has into the nature of reality.
No, that's not
actually,
true.
They're just confused by a bunch of things being stuck
No.
together.
Everyone has the ability to have the same insight into reality. There is no secret knowledge that is only available to a select few. You also don't need to do something like LSD or mushrooms or ayahuasca or DMT to have access to that information. You can all get access to that information through meditation. Now, it takes longer through meditation. You have to be more disciplined about your practice. Like ayahuasca and DMT, it's like fast forwarding through a lot of meditation. Essentially, ayahuasca and DMT will get you there a lot quicker. But I see the same things in meditation as I see on ayahuasca, just because I've been doing this stuff for so long. But there's no secret information. We all have access to exactly the same type of information that comes from the collective consciousness. You don't even need drugs to get there. Milo is wrong. He is wrong about this.
Have you done LSD?
No, most definitely not.
You should do it before you talk about it.
I don't need to
Ian.
kill someone to know motives.
Yes, I agree.
There are things that I'm happy to trust that I shouldn't try, and that's another thing about women's suffrage is it's a kind
We're
of
gonna wrap
violation
up in
of
a
the
minute,
innocence
guys.
of women that men are so attracted to. I mean, the soil that nourishes that protective instinct is the purity and innocence of
I've
young
done
women who
this.
are
There's
unsullied by
videos on the
ugliness of
channel
world,
about it.
men can go out and be reckless and wreck their brains and make terrible mistakes and all the rest of it. But when you inject women into a sphere that
I did, just so you guys know, I did a whole stream from PorkFest this past year where I talked about my ayahuasca and my DMT experiences. So if you're interested in that, that does exist on my channel somewhere. I may or may not have been on drugs when I did them. I can't confirm or deny.
that they're not created to flourish in. It does something inexcusable to them. It is an imposition on them that I think that we owe them an enormous apology for, and we should try to set it right.
Yeah. What you said earlier, I found very interesting, but I would even, in some instances, go even further, because you talked about godlessness. I would say there's even elements of just pure Satanism in our society, in our establishment, especially when you look at people like Jeffrey Epstein, when you look at all the celebrities, when you look at all the occult stuff.
The rappers are doing
well, that's demonic. I will agree.
There's like blood sacrifices.
Regularly,
Lady Gaga leaves a bathtub of blood in her hotel room, but that's a whole other topic before even getting there. But also, I want to talk about what you said about institutions, because you said institutions aren't protecting people. I would even
I'm going to reserve my fucking comments,
people, especially when it comes to the way of life, especially what they incentivize. And I think it's the institutions that are a problem. So how do we go back to this?
We've given ourselves AIDS, so the white blood cells that should protect us are attacking us instead.
Exactly. So how do we fix this problem? Because it seems like a lot of the solutions you have.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up in a minute because I got about 5 minutes until we do our Zoom call, but we'll watch for a few more minutes. I just want to say, like, yes, sometimes you will have bad trips. It happens. But like, if you don't want to have a bad trip, you have to think happy thoughts and ask, and this is going to sound cheesy for people who don't get it, and I understand that. Ask the universe, ask God, whatever God you believe in, please give me a nice, gentle, positive experience. You have to like ask for it and then expect it to happen and trust it will happen. And you're much less likely to have a bad trip. People who have bad trips oftentimes are abusing these things instead of approaching them with the seriousness that it deserves. I once did an ayahuasca ceremony with some dude who had been eating barbecue and drinking beer 2 hours before we did the ayahuasca ceremony. That is not treating that particular experience with the respect that it deserves. And I'll tell you what, that dude did not have a good night, but he brought it on himself because he did not treat Mama Ayahuasca with the respect she deserves.
Is okay, let's support Trump, let's support these strong institutions. These institutions are corrupted. How do we fix these institutions? How do we make them work for us again?
America is doomed without a reversal of the sedition that sealed its fate,
which is
American independence. I'm afraid to say it's all encoded.
Sounds like something a British person would say.
Yes, it does. But there's a reason I'm here and not there. It's because I like it here better. And I want
so
America
it didn't quite ruin it, did it, Milo?
We have done so better as
my gosh,
as a member of the Commonwealth in good standing. It might not have had some of the remarkable financial successes, such as they are, but
all right, guys, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up because I do have a call with my locals community starting in just a couple of minutes. Guys, I will be sending out the Zoom link to both Patreon and locals very, very, very soon. And if you want to get access to that, head over to activelyunwoke.com/support. And you can find links to my Patreon where you can join from anywhere from $5 a month all the way up to $250 a month. And $5 a month is all that it takes to get access to the Zoom calls. You can get some cool swag. You can also find links to my locals. Locals is where I would recommend you join for the moment anyway. And that's where you can get access to the private unrecorded Zoom call that will be starting in just a couple of minutes. And if you think this stream is good, come to one of my private unrecorded calls sometime. And I promise you, they're a ton of fun. I've got the best community on the internet. They keep me sane. They are amazing. But guys, thank you for joining me for this stream today. I know I welcomed a lot of new people onto the channel. Like I said, I would really prefer to not do Tim Pool related content all the time. That would be my preference. I feel like I've got a lot of great content on the channel. I've got Socialism Saturday. I've got Schools Exposed. I have daily clips that I post. I have the Disenraged series. I have the Libertarian series. Coming up tomorrow, we are going to be having a chat with Dave Benner at 5 o'clock. He's written a book about Thomas Paine as a modern radical. And he loves Thomas Paine so much. And I want him to teach us how to love, why we should love Thomas Paine just as much as he does. That's going to be tomorrow at 5 o'clock. On Wednesday at 5 p.m., I'm going to welcome my friend Joseph Forcato onto the channel. He is an amazing strategist with the GOP, so smart, so nuanced, and I want to talk to him about why the Republicans lost the midterms. And yes, Tim, the Republicans lost the midterms, and you don't get to rewrite history on this one. The Republicans lost, and that's just the way it goes. But guys, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you for spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please mount that like button on your way out the door. And we'll see you next time tomorrow at 5 p.m. And we'll see you guys soon. Take care. Have a great